Chapter 453. Groups of warriors, dressed in neat uniforms, were patrolling the area. The leader of the martial artists waved a long whip in his hand and shouted, "You freelance martial artists, hurry and find an inn to stay in. In the next 3 days, it's best not to go out on the street. This orderly mountain capital city is going to be under half martial law. If you don't want to cause trouble, you should either leave the city quickly or find a place to stay. Those with a sect to rely on, hurry and go home to train. Don't wander around on the street." These martial artists were the official army of the orderly mountain prefecture. Their combat power was extremely powerful. Their individual strength was already astonishing. Their ability to fight in groups was even more well-trained. They were many times more powerful than these freelance martial artists. Thus, although the freelance martial artists were not happy to be scolded, they did not dare to disobey. No one dared to complain. They all knew that at this time, whoever dared to speak out of turn would be playing with their own lives. These official knights were famous for being unreasonable. It would be the same as seeking death to talk back to them. They scattered in all directions like a swarm of bees. Of course, Qin Wushuang would not provoke these unnecessary quarrels as he also walked towards the city. Along the way, he could see patrolling official knights everywhere. These people were showing off their power everywhere and acting tyrannically. Wherever they went, there would be chaos. What the hell, this orderly mountain capital city does have a grand scale. However, the way they do things is nothing special. These people are wearing a body of leather and showing off their power as if they are great. Their faces. Lone was like an angry youth. When he saw something he could not stand, he would mutter a few words. Bao Bao did not find it strange. Second, such things are not strange at all. I think these people might not be like this usually. Or else, who would come to this orderly mountain capital city? I am afraid we would not even see a ghost. For sure, they're doing this because some important figure is coming to the orderly mountain prefecture. In the end, Bao Bao had a sharp mind. Qin Wushuang nodded with a smile. That's right. Qin Wushuang was extremely familiar with this scene. In his former world, he had seen too many of such situations. Let every man of importance come down below. Wouldn't they cause a great disturbance? After finding an inn, the three of them settled down. This inn was located in a prime location. Qin Wushuang had chosen the highest floor. Hence, the price was much higher. However, the price was the same as the price. The higher the price, the better the service and treatment. This inn was completely different from the small inns in the continent's capital. When it was nighttime, Bao Bao and Lone visited Qin Wushuang's room as usual. Bao Bao was bored to death. So boring. What is this orderly mountain prefecture doing? Even the streets were under martial law. How are they going to let people live? If we had known earlier, we would have bypassed this place. That's right, boss. What kind of background do you think the people who came this time have? Qin Wushuang shrugged and said with a wry smile, I really don't know. I am rather curious. How powerful is this person with a great background? And why did he come to the orderly mountain prefecture? Boss, are you still worried about the 100-Leaf Qin clan? Lone asked. Qin Wushuang shook his head and gave a long sigh. The 100-Leaf Qin clan has their own destiny. I was there at the right time and helped them this time. In the future, whether the 100-Leaf Qin clan can remain safe and sound, it will depend on their luck. This upcoming major figure should not be related to the 100-Leaf Qin clan. Why do you say so? For sure, the ones dealing with the 100-Leaf Qin clan are those powerhouses that are enemies with the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. If they had come, certainly they would not be so high-profile. The more high-profile they are, the more they would remind the 100-Leaf Qin clan to make preparations. I think they would not be this stupid. Haha, that's right. Bao Bao scratched his head. I will not waste my brain to think about it. Anyways, what will come will come. When the time comes, let's watch the show. Boss, could it be people from the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect? Lone asked suspiciously. It's not impossible. Qin Wushuang did not care. Could it be the Tao warrior of the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect is coming? Bao Bao blinked his eyes. However, Lone analyzed, it's reasonable to say that the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect is only a second-class powerhouse in the Xianyuan Mound. Doesn't the Orderly Mountain Prefecture also have a dark green cloud Taoist sect that is close to the second class? Bao Bao immediately said, the dark green cloud Taoist sect is between the third-rate and second-rate powerhouses. They are only close to the second-rate. However, for the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect, the Silver Monkey King said that among the second-rate powerhouses, they are close to the first-rate powerhouses. It seems that the division of powerhouses in the Xianyuan Mound is extremely mysterious. I am afraid that only those first-rate powerhouses are unquestionably the top existences. Lone gave a long sigh. After staying at the inn for the night, Qin Wushuang and his friends did not check out the next day and continued to stay at the inn. Only, they could still go out on the streets during the day. Of course, there was a time limit. Once it was nighttime, the martial law would be implemented. On the third day, suddenly, the streets of the orderly mountain capital city became lively. However, this liveliness was all official news. Amidst the sound of gongs and drums, the atmosphere of the orderly mountain capital city seemed to have thickened. He's here. A major figure is here. Yes, someone saw a moment ago that the prefecture lord of the orderly mountain prefecture went to welcome him. TSK, our orderly mountain prefecture is considered a remote and desolate place in the Xianyuan Mound. I really don't know where this major figure has come from. He has given us enough face. Outside the city gate, the prefecture lord of the orderly mountain prefecture had brought a large group of followers and all the reputable figures of the orderly mountain prefecture. Outside the official road, a group of knights from the orderly mountain prefecture led the way. However, there were only 3 or 4 people following behind them. One of the middle-aged men had kept an elegant purple beard. His appearance was clear and strange. When he walked, he gave people a feeling of extraordinary temperament. However, from the face of this person, there was some imperceptible gloominess. Although it was a long and arduous journey, he did not appear travel-worn. Only, that trace of depression between his brows could not help but make people wonder if he was troubled by something. When this person saw a large group of people gathered outside the city gate, he knew that they were the important figures of the orderly mountain prefecture. He did not show any joy, and inwardly, he shook his head with a bitter smile. Clearly, he did not like this meaningless display of extravagance. Here. A joyful expression emerged from between the brows of CS Sankai, the prefecture lord of the orderly mountain prefecture. He immediately went up and chuckled as if he had seen an old friend that he had not seen for many years. He appeared extremely intimate. Lord Murong, we are honored by your presence. I, CS Sankai, apologize for not going out to meet you. Although this CS Sankai could not be considered a first-rate figure in the Xianyuan Mound, he was close to being a first-rate figure since he was the prefecture lord. Regardless of his strength or wisdom, this person was much higher than ordinary people. Inside his heart, he had a clear account book and was very particular about it. In the Xianyuan Mound, what kind of people could he not offend and could not afford to curry favor with? What kind of people could he not afford to offend, but could he curry favor with? What kind of people could he not afford to offend, but could he not curry favor with? In his account book, the person that had come today belonged to the people that he could not afford to offend, but could curry favor with. Thus, in Siesansai's eyes, this Lord Mu Rong did not belong to the highest level. In Siesansai's eyes, the highest level was an existence that he could not afford to offend and could not curry favor with. For such figure, Siesankai would not think too much. However, this Lord Mu Rong before him was someone he could curry favor with. Of course, he was extremely attentive. All of his efforts were to rack his brains to curry favor with this person. This purple-bearded middle-aged man was indeed the #1 figure of the Floating Snow House, a major powerhouse in the Xianyuan Mound, Mu Rong Xianji. Besides being the #1 figure of the Floating Snow House, this person had another identity. He was the father of Miss Mu Rong that Qin Wushuang had met. Of course, at this moment, Qin Wushuang had no way to know. He also did not know that this major figure that had come to the Orderly Mountain Prefecture would be greatly related to his future. When Mu Rong Qianji saw CS Sankai rushing over with a large group of people, he stopped his footsteps and said with a smile, "Prefecture Master Xie is making such a big fuss. I am ashamed." "What are you talking about, Lord Mu Rong?" Xie Sankai was overwhelmed by this unexpected favor. He extended his hand and shook hands with Mu Rong Qianji intimately. Inwardly, I've been excited for a few days to have someone like Lord Mu Rong come to a remote and desolate place like my orderly mountain prefecture. Prefecture Master Xie really knows how to joke. This time, I did not intend to disturb your peaceful training when I passed by your place. Indeed, I was worried about the whereabouts of my daughter and asked around. Immediately, an extremely regretful expression appeared on Xie Sansai's face. As if he was also feeling anxious for Lord Mu Rong, he said with a tone, "I also heard that Miss Mu Rong had gone out to relax and had not returned for a few years. Half a year ago, there were rumors that someone had seen Miss Mu Rong at the dispersed praying mountain. Some people also said that Miss Mu Rong was in the human countries. At that time, I only hated the fact that we were too far apart. Or else, I would have sent a message to Lord Mu Rong. I have spoiled that willful girl of mine." Mu Rong Qianji gave a long sigh. Although he said it this way, besides concern, his tone did not contain much reproach. Xie Sankai observed his words and body language and knew that Mu Rong Qianji had spoiled his precious daughter. He had always treated his daughter as his own flesh and blood. Immediately, he said, "Lord Mu Rong, I only knew that my niece had gone out to relax for a while and would return soon. I didn't expect you to be alarmed and come out to search for her. Please let me know if you need my help." Indeed, Mu Rong Qianji needed the help of this local overlord. Or else, he would not have come to this orderly mountain capital city to see this Xie Sankai. When Xie Sankai saw him remaining silent, he said again in a solicitous tone, "It's not that I am boasting. At the orderly mountain prefecture, if your daughter were to pass by this place, I would have noticed. Lord, if you need my help, please don't treat me as an outsider." Although the orderly mountain prefecture is far away from the floating snow house, I have long heard of Lord Mu Rong's virtuous name. Mu Rong Qianji knew that this Xie Sankai was a person who wanted to curry favor. However, since he was eager to find his daughter, he had to follow his tone and said politely, "If that's the case, thank you, Prefecture Lord." "What are you talking about?" "Haha, let's enter the city first. The orderly mountain capital city is simple and crude. Please don't laugh at us." Don't mention it. Mu Rong Qianji smiled and looked around. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 454. In the Xianyuan Mound, Mu Rong Qianji was a well-known figure. Although the floating snow house was on par with first-rate powerhouses like the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates, they were still a second-rate powerhouse. Across the entire Xianyuan Mound, they were a major powerhouse in the top 20. Mu Rong Qianji's own powerhouse was enough to rank in the top 50 of the entire Xianyuan Mound. Perhaps being ranked in the top 50 did not appear to be awe-inspiring. However, considering the number of powerhouses in the Xianyuan Mound and the abundance of elite warriors, being able to rank in the top 500 would be enough for one to become a feudal lord. And being ranked in the top 50 in the Xianyuan Mound, they would definitely be looked up to by people. Thus, it was easy to understand why Xie Sankai was trying to curry favor with him. After a round of social interaction, Mu Rong Qianji finally obtained a short period of peace. He rested at the guest house that Xie Sankai had arranged with meticulous care. Due to his concern for his beloved daughter, Mu Rong Qianji appeared to have a heavy load on his mind. "Master, are you still not asleep?" The one that spoke was Mu Rong Qianji's trusted aide that had followed him for more than 200 years. Mu Rong Qianji had always called him Wuda. This Wuda had followed Mu Rong Qianji for all these years. Regardless of foreign affairs or internal affairs, he had almost become Mu Rong Qianji's shadow. Indeed, he had taken care of many major matters. For such an accompanying trip, of course, Wuda would be at his beck and call. Wuda, look at the alluring moonlight tonight. I just don't know where Su-er is at this moment. Mu-rong Chinji gave a light sigh. Master, Miss went out to relax. When she has had enough fun, she will return home. I think that the human countries should not pose any threat to Mississippi. I am not worried about her safety. Mu-rong Chinji slowly shook his head. I am only worried about the sinister hearts of the people in the outside world. Su-er has just stepped into the Jianghu and has been deceived. In the world of mortals, the most terrifying thing is not the threat of martial power, but the sinister hearts of the people. Master, I see that Miss is talented and intelligent. Since a young age, she has had her own opinions. Master, I am only worried that she has treated her as an inexperienced little girl. In my opinion, with Mrs. Intelligence, ordinary people could not deceive her. Although this Mu-rong Qianji was a super elite warrior of the Xian Yuan Mound, when it came to the issue of children, he cared for his children like all the other parents in the world. Mu-rong Qianji raised his head and looked at the moonlight in the night sky. He was somewhat melancholy. Wuda, the reason I came out this time was to look for Su-er in name. It was to avoid the continuous urging of the 4 Dao warriors of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect. Wuda was very tactful and didn't comment on this issue. Mu-rong Qianji smiled bitterly. The power of the floating snow house would not lose to the heavenly Luo Daoist sect. In the first place, there was no need to care about their expressions. However, Su-er's marriage was agreed upon long ago. Right now, Su had been on the run for several years. At the beginning, he was still able to gloss over it. He just thought that she was young and insensible. Now that a few years have passed and he still did not return, from the perspective of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, it would appear that the floating snow house is not amenable to reason. In the end, it's still a matter of face. Wuda gave a long sigh. Master, from my point of view, for this marriage, if Miss is unwilling, we cannot force it. Although that heavenly Luo Daoist sect is in the limelight, it's not worthwhile for the floating snow house to curry favor with them. How can I not think the same? Mu-rong Qianji gave a light sigh. Regarding this matter, there is no reason at all. It's a marriage that was agreed upon by the previous generation. Currently, the older generation of both parties have already passed away. Yet, they have left behind this endless lawsuit. By the way, Wuda, how is that Luo Ting's talent? Do you have any new information recently? Regarding that Luo Ting at the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, he is being nurtured as a successor. Many years ago, this kid was said to be at the transformation void martial stage. Recently, there are rumors that he is about to break through and enter the profound void martial stage. I don't know if this is a rumor or it's true. It needs to be verified. Haha, if he is not a first-rate powerhouse like the heavenly Emperor Eight Gates among the younger generation, to be able to enter the profound void martial stage, he should be considered a rare genius, right? Wuda nodded. Indeed, it's rare to be able to enter the profound void martial stage at his age. His future is limitless. Su-er doesn't like such talent and martial arts. Why is that? When Mu-rong Qianji said this, he also felt extremely helpless. Although he was an exceptional hero, he also knew that he could not force matters such as feelings. Since a young age, this daughter of his had always had her own opinions. She was soft on the outside but strong on the inside. Once she had made up her mind, it would be difficult for outsiders to make her change her mind. Wuda laughed. In fact, that young master Luo Ting is somewhat too high profile. When he visited the floating snow house a few times, I also observed him coldly. Although he is a shrewd person, he is not good at concealing his sharpness. Since he is too high profile, it's not easy for him to accept other people. Perhaps, Missy does not like his excessive confidence. Mu-rong Qianji nodded and gave a long sigh. Excessive confidence is considered arrogance. In the Xian Yuan Mound, unless you are an offspring of the totem clan, you do not have much capital to be arrogant. When he said here, suddenly, Mu-rong Qianji revealed a smile and asked, Last time, the honored Taoist of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect sent me a letter. He said that Su-Er had made a move to deal with people of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect in the human countries. I heard that it was to protect a young man from the human countries. Do you still remember this matter? Wuda said respectfully. Of course I remember. I also ordered people to investigate the matter that you asked me to investigate. Oh, what is the exact situation? According to the information, most of the rumors are true. Missy did become acquainted with a young man from the human countries. However, it seems that they only interacted with each other in terms of music. What's the name of that young man? Mu Rong Qinji asked in a low voice. Qin Wushuang. Qin. Mu Rong Qinji frowned slightly and revealed a trace of curiosity. Is this Qin related to the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan? For now, I don't know. However, according to the information, this Qin Wushuang is extremely interesting. In the human countries, he could be considered as an absolute oddity. Oddity? How so? Mu Rong Qinji also seemed to be interested. In the human countries, this young man only came from a grassroots aristocratic family. His family had declined and was in dire straits. Before he was 13 or 14 years old, he was ordinary and even somewhat cowardly. However, after a duel between the aristocratic offspring, this young man seemed to have been enlightened. From then on, he could not be stopped. In just a few years, he had brought that declining family of his to the position of the royal family. And he himself, from a little martial arts student in the human countries, he had jumped to the upper sky spiritual martial force in just a few years. Mu Rong Qinji said with a smile. Perhaps this young man had received some fortune and swallowed some upper sky spiritual object. Master, the human country is extremely barren. Even those powerful sects might not be able to cultivate spiritual fruits, not to mention a remote and desolate place. It would be fine if he had entered the upper sky spiritual martial force. However, all of this was only the beginning of this young man. In less than 3 years, this Qin Wushuang had advanced by leaps and bounds. Not only did he help his sect to resist the invasion of powerful enemies, he had also completely destroyed and replaced the strongest powerhouse in the human countries. To the human countries, this could be counted as a miracle. Naturally, Mu Rong Qinji knew the predicament of the human countries. Master, the empire he had destroyed was called the Red Dragon Empire, and the strongest powerhouse in that empire was called the Nine Palace faction. The supporter behind the Nine Palace faction was the Heavenly Luo Daoist sect. Heavenly Luo Daoist sect. Mu Rong Qinji finally realized the light. I see. This way, Su-Er had stepped out because of the grudge between the two countries? In fact, Miss did not make a move. I heard that she had only reprimanded that disciple from the Heavenly Luo Daoist sect. She had used the agreement from 10,000 years ago as an excuse to persuade him to leave. Haha. No wonder when the Tao warrior of the Heavenly Luo Daoist sect mentioned this matter, he was also evasive and did not explain the ins and outs of the matter. They were also feeling guilty. The powerhouse of the forbidden spiritual zones had openly sent people to interfere with the conflict in the human countries. Indeed, it had violated the 10,000-year-old agreement. Mu Rong Qinji's tone was not relaxed. However, Su-Er was willing to step out. It seems that she valued the relationship between Su-Er and that Qin Wushuang. Wuda smiled bitterly. Master, from the information, Miss did value this relationship greatly. She had traveled around the human countries and the dispersed praying mountain. It seemed that she had been paying attention to that Qin Wushuang. Mu Rong Qinji's expression was somewhat embarrassed as he fell into deep thought. Instantly, his expression had become solemn. Instantly, the courtyard became silent. It was so quiet that only the insects chirping in the dark night could be heard. All living things seemed to have gradually fallen asleep under the dim light of the night. Wuda, could it be that Su-Er had fallen in love? When Mu Rong Qinji spoke these words, his tone was also heavy. Master, Miss is your daughter. You should know her better than me, right? If she had fallen in love, I am afraid she might not. However, in terms of good feelings, she would have. That young man knows music and understands the sound of the zither. Miss has always been obsessed with music. To such a young man, she could not help but have an extra appreciation and good impression. Mu Rong, Qianji mumbled. Idiot, she is truly an idiot. Her grandfather, who is my father, was obsessed with chess. Initially, because he had lost a game of chess, he decided on that absurd marriage. I, Mu Rong Qianji, have been obsessed with the way of the sword for my entire life. I didn't expect that my daughter would also be such an idiot. Wuda said with a smile, Master, perhaps because of this obsession, the Mu Rong clan has some unique advantages over others in terms of training. However, those who have this obsession are always people who are loyal to their feelings. This is a double-edged sword. If you use it well, everything will be good. If you don't use it well, you will miss out on your entire life. Wuda comforted him. Master, the moonlight is just right. There is no need to think about these troublesome matters. How about I accompany you to take a walk and experience the scenery of this Xian Yuan mound border? Since Miss had appeared in the human countries, perhaps there will be some unexpected gains at this orderly mountain royal city? All right, let's take a walk. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 455. Since the honorable guest had arrived, Xie Sankai had done enough on the surface. Thus, the martial law of the orderly mountain prefecture capital city was lifted. Naturally, those martial artists that had been suppressed for 2 or 3 days walked out of their houses and arrived at the main street. Instantly, all the places that indulged in debauchery became lively. Although it was already late at night, to the bustling capital city, the indulgence of the nightlife had just begun. Qin Wushuang and his 2 friends also arrived at the main street. In the capital city of the orderly mountain prefecture, there were 3 or 4 places that were always the most lively regardless of day or night. Among them, the Freelance Martial Artists Union was one of them. In the Xianyuan Mound, there were many sects, and each place had deeply rooted sects and powerhouses. However, regardless of how many sects and powerhouses there were, the number of martial artists was limited. In the Xianyuan Mound, perhaps the number of martial artists could be counted with hundreds of millions. However, among these freelance martial artists, at most, no more than 30% of them belonged to sects and organizations. Besides them, even if they were in groups of 2 or 3, they were still freelance martial artists. Freelance martial artists did not have sects to rely on and did not have a fixed territory. Compared to the martial artists that had sects to rely on, freelance martial artists were at a disadvantage to a large extent. However, after all, there were very few martial artists that had sects to rely on and were born with a golden spoon in their mouth. In the Tianxian land, the number of freelance martial artists would always be the highest. Thus, any place, even if it was a little county, as long as there were freelance martial artists, it would be bustling with activity. At this moment, the Freelance Martial Artist Union of the orderly mountain capital city was also bustling with activity. Just as Qin Wushuang and his 2 friends approached the door, they were greeted by an enthusiastic butler. You 3, are you here to sign up? Sign up? Bao Bao was stunned. The deacon smiled and said, So the 3 of you still don't know? Recently, many missions have appeared in the southern Vermilion Bernine prefectures. In these few days, the number of freelance martial artists that have come to sign up has broken the threshold. I thought the 3 of you were here for these missions as well. Naturally, these butlers had their reasons for greeting them with such enthusiasm. For each person who signed up, they would receive a fee. Whoever was in charge of receiving them would receive a commission from this fee. If the accepted mission was completed, the commission from a union would also reward the butler in charge of receiving them. Therefore, the deacon on duty spared no effort in recruiting them. Qin Wushuang smiled and said, What kind of missions are there? If it's attractive, the 3 of us will definitely consider it. Seeing that there was some progress in this matter, the deacon welcomed Qin Wushuang and the others in with a smile. While he prepared the drinks and snacks, he introduced, Of course, the most popular mission is targeted at the 100-Leaf Qin clan. However, this kind of mission needs a big shot to lead and organize it. Qin Wushuang waved his hand. We three brothers aren't interested in this kind of thing. Are there any other missions? Of course there is. There is a mission that has been very popular recently. It's a second-level bounty issued by the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect. The bounty is 80,000 gold crystal stones for a young man named Qin Wushuang. The deacon was beaming with joy as he introduced, "If you sign up here, you could get first-line information and insider information. However, these information are all very confidential, so the registration fee will definitely be relatively expensive. However, this price is definitely worth it." Bao Bao and Lone revealed a faint smile. However, Qin Wushuang took it seriously. "How much is the registration fee?" Not much. For the three of you, it's 100 gold crystal stones each." When Bao Bao heard this, he twisted his brow and slapped the table. "Hey, you think we are rich? For the three of us, 100 gold crystal stones each? Wouldn't it be enough if one of us signed up?" That deacon laughed mischievously and said with a smile, "It seems you three are smart people. To tell you the truth, this mission is very popular recently. Many people have signed up. They all want to get first-hand information from us. You must know that these information were not given by the employer, but collected by the arranged Mountain Freelance Martial Artist Union. It's definitely first-hand and confidential." "Confidential my ass." The deacon continued to introduce the information, but he didn't want to annoy a rogue cultivator next to him. The rogue cultivator cursed and shouted, "I really thought it was a secret, but it's all F*** public information, and you still dare to call yourself a first-hand secret. Huh, I say, you three don't believe his stupid mouth. 100 gold crystal stones would definitely be wasted. If you guys can really take out that human kid, you can fulfill this bounty anywhere. They are wearing sheep's clothing to sell dog meat. They claim to be selling first-hand information, but in fact, they are using this mission to scam money." That deacon glanced at that person embarrassedly and did not act out. After all, this person was not lying. Indeed, the information they had provided was not some exclusive secret. Qin Wushuang smiled lightly at that freelance martial artist. "Brother, thank you for the reminder. Brother, today's expenses will be covered by the three of us." That person waved his hand casually. "Anyways, I don't deserve it. I don't take advantage of others. May I ask your surname?" Qin Wushuang cupped his hands in a salute and asked. That person was dressed in a black robe that was decorated with snowflakes. His face was stern and resolute like a sharp blade that would not allow people to get close to him. Looking from afar, he gave off a feeling of being 1,000 miles away. That person gave a cold snort and glanced at Qin Wushuang casually. However, he did not answer. Although he only glanced at him, his gaze was as sharp as a blade. If Qin Wushuang did not have a strong temperament, most likely he would have shivered from this glance. Bao Bao twitched his mouth. "Boss, we have money. Why would we be afraid of not having a place to spend it? Rather than treating people to drinks, we should drink a few more cups ourselves." Initially, Qin Wushuang wanted to speak. However, as he glanced to the side, he saw a figure sitting quietly at a corner on the right. That person had a calm smile on his face as he drank alone. Although he was only sitting at a corner, he still appeared to be a crane among chickens. That person exchanged glances with Qin Wushuang and smiled lightly. Qin Wushuang was extremely surprised as he also nodded at that person. This person was Jiu Fong Yunfei. This was the exceptional young man of the Jiu Fong clan. After the battle where the 100-Leaf Qin clan had defeated Chen Sun, he had disappeared without a trace. He did not celebrate with the Qin clan. Qin Wushuang had also felt somewhat disappointed. He admired Jiu Fong Yunfei's temperament and always wanted to have a chat with this exceptional young man of the Jiu Fong clan. Unexpectedly, he saw this young man again today. "It's him?" Bao Bao and Lone were also slightly surprised. "Don't speak." Qin Wushuang sent a glance at Bao Bao and Lone and sent his voice to them. Since there were many eyes and ears here, Qin Wushuang was afraid that someone would recognize Jiu Fong Yunfei and bring unnecessary trouble. After all, many people had witnessed Jiu Fong Yunfei saving Qin Zhao at the Black Raven Royal City. After the wine had been poured, Qin Wushuang had just lifted a cup to his mouth. Suddenly, a person ran in from outside the hall and shouted, "Good news, good news! Top secret good news! Iron Holler, you have been selling information your entire life. When can you bring out some top secret information?" Apparently, many freelance martial artists knew this person at the Freelance Martial Artist Union. This person's appearance was very unique. Using the words shifty-eyed to describe him was more appropriate. This person's nickname was Iron Holler. He mingled around the orderly mountain prefecture and made a living by selling information. This person was born with a good voice and was good at spreading information. Thus, he was called Iron Holler. Only, it was hard to determine whether the information from this person was true or false. Sometimes it was true, and sometimes it was false. This Iron Holler twisted his brows and rolled his eyes. He chuckled. This time, it's top secret information. Who would believe that you're the only one who can get top secret information? Haha, it's up to you whether you believe it or not. Anyways, I don't plan to sell it to you. Hey, this Iron Holler grabbed a butler next to him. Butler Wong, if I sell this information to your union, I promise it will be worth a lot. Once you package this information, for sure it will increase in value by 10 times. For this deal, we will both win. Apparently, that Butler Wong did not trust Iron Holler's character as he said with suspicion, "Iron Holler, our union is not going to play dumb with you. If you truly have top secret information, we can pay for it. But if you spread rumors, you'll be in big trouble." Iron Holler smiled apologetically. "How could I, Butler Wong? If I want to make a living in the Orderly Mountain Prefecture, how could I fool you?" Butler Wong rolled his eyes. "How much do you want?" Iron Holler became interested as he counted with his fingers. "To be honest, I dug out this information through a channel that none of you would have thought of. Behind this information, there is my exclusive analysis, and it's an exclusive inside story." "That's enough, stop." Deacon Wong immediately rejected it. "I have no interest in your exclusive analysis of the so-called inside story. You can sell this information to anyone who wants to buy it. Our union has no use for it." "Don't, Butler Wong." Iron Holler became anxious. "Don't be so absolute. My analysis is built on the basis of reason and evidence. Even if you don't want to buy my second piece of information, this piece of information is the real deal. There is not the slightest bit of analysis in it." Butler Wong only sneered as he did not believe him at all. Iron Holler shouted, Everyone, is there anyone among you that knows the goods? Let me tell you first, my information is related to that mission issued by the Heavenly Luo Daoist sect. This information is definitely an exclusive secret. If it's outdated information, I will have nothing to say even if you kill me on the spot." Even Qin Wushuang put down his wine cup and looked at this Iron Holler. "It's absolutely true. To get this information, I spent thousands of gold crystal stones. For this information, I will not sell it without 2,000 gold crystal stones. Is the information you're talking about related to that Qin Wushuang from the human countries?" An indifferent voice sounded from outside the door. Although this voice sounded indifferent, it was filled with the temperament of a ruler. When one heard it, they could not help but feel shocked. Iron Holler answered, Yes. Okay, I'll buy this information. Here are 30 green crystal stones. I'll give you the extra." Next, an object was thrown in. It was a brocade pouch. When he opened it, there were indeed 30 resplendent green crystal stones inside. 30 green crystal stones were worth 3,000 gold crystal stones. It was 1,000 more than Iron Holler's asking price. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chitian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 456. This sudden change not only made the spectators look out of the door in astonishment, but even Iron Holler's hand, which was holding the 30 green crystals, couldn't help but tremble slightly. Obviously, he did not expect such a good thing to happen. Qin Wushuang did not know whether to laugh or cry. He did not expect himself to be so valuable. Just a piece of information related to him could be sold at such a high price. What he was more curious about was, who was so concerned about him. Outside the door, a guest with a purple beard walked in with a calm expression. Beside him, there was an expressionless person. This guest with the purple beard had a calm expression. Under the gaze of hundreds of eyes, it was as if he did not feel anything and did not care about those gazes. His follower, on the other hand, had eyes like a sharp knife, scanning the entire place, giving people a feeling of alertness. "Sir, is this money from you?" Ironholler was obviously not sure. The aura of these two people made Ironholler, who was used to seeing the world, feel somewhat lacking in confidence. The guest with the purple beard said with a smile, "Just now, the one who wanted to sell information, was it not you?" Yes. Ironholler could tell at a glance that this person was not ordinary. His gaze, his action was very imposing. "Then, is this money enough to buy your information?" "Enough, definitely enough." Ironholler nodded and bowed. "Say it." The guest with the purple beard waved his hand casually. "Say it here?" Ironholler had a face of astonishment. "Don't you want to find another remote place? Since you paid the price, I have to tell it to you alone." "There's no need. Say it here. I'll pay, and everyone will share the information." The guest with the purple beard smiled naturally. Ironholler had sold information for half his life, and had been doing this for dozens of years. He had never met such a buyer, who would pay to share information with everyone. The person beside the guest with a purple beard frowned. "What's wrong? I asked you to say it, so say it." Ironholler suddenly realized, and hurriedly nodded. Good. I'll say it. This information really came at the right time. If I say that I'm the source of this information, you may believe me." Ironholler's words were obviously a warm-up. It could attract people's attention. It had to be said that his plan was effective. Obviously, Ironholler also wanted to make good use of this news to build up his reputation in this circle. Therefore, when he talked about this matter, he seemed to be very serious. "The source of my information came from the dispersed praying mountain." What kind of place is the dispersed praying mountain? That is the barrier between the human countries and the Xianyuan Mount. In the dispersed praying mountain, there are a total of 3 major powerhouses. They are the Monkey Clan of the Monkey King Mountain, the Deep Abyss Barbarians, and the 8 Great Bandits of the Red Maple Human Clan. I say, Ironholler, can't you make it short? Can you cut the crap? Some of the people present were unhappy. Obviously, they couldn't stand Ironholler's way of whetting their appetites, and couldn't help but urge him. Ironholler rolled his eyes. I say, "Sir, the ones who bought my information are these 2 old men. You didn't pay for it, so why are you rushing me? If you want to listen to it fast, you have to pay." After he finished speaking, he smiled at the purple-bearded man in an ingratiating manner. "Sir, please don't laugh at me. If he spoke about this matter too quickly, he might miss out on important information. I must go through the entire sequence of events. This way, it would show that the information is accurate and worthy of your generous reward. Speak slowly, don't be in a rush. The more detailed, the better." Naturally, Ironholler was even more proud when he received his employer's approval. He cleared his throat and rolled his eyes at that person. Then, he said with a smile, "Regarding the origin of the 8 Great Bandits of the Red Maple, most likely, those who understand the story would know. They are a group of prisoners from the Xianyuan Mound who escaped to the dispersed Praying Mountain to settle down. After generations, they became the Red Maple Human Clan. This Red Maple Human Clan was bewitched by the barbarian tribe as they coveted the foundation of the Monkey Clan at the Monkey King Mountain. Haha, everyone pay attention. Here, we're starting to get to the main point. Initially, when the Red Maple Human Clan and the barbarian tribe worked together, it would be easy to deal with the Monkey Clan. However, at this time, the headquarters of the Red Maple Human Clan and the barbarian tribe were ambushed. The ambushers were extremely vicious as they directly destroyed the temples of the barbarian tribe and the Red Maple Human Clan. Initially, the main force of the Red Maple Human Clan and the barbarian tribe was attacking the Monkey King Mountain. After they learned of this news, they had no choice but to return to defend. During the process of returning to defend, the Red Maple Human Clan encountered a calamity of extermination. They were surrounded by powerful powerhouses from both left and right. All the direct descendants of the 8 great bandits of the Red Maple Human clan were executed. Do you guys know why the Monkey clan that was on the verge of extinction suddenly came back from the dead and had the power to fight back? All of this is related to one person. Qin Wushuang. Is it Qin Wushuang? Instantly, his words touched the nerves of many people. They all realized that Iron Holler was going to highlight the main topic by beating around the bush. Iron Holler smiled with satisfaction and said seriously, "That's right, it's this Qin Wushuang. Perhaps, with your information, you know the background of this Qin Wushuang, his growth, and the grudges between him and the 9 Palace faction of the Red Dragon Empire. You also know why the Heavenly Luo Daoist sect wanted to kill Qin Wushuang. However, do you know? Qin Wushuang has a close relationship with the Monkey clan of the Monkey King Mountain. Initially, to save his teacher, Qin Wushuang had traveled tens of thousands of miles to the Monkey King Mountain and received a great favor from them. Thus, he offered his plan to help the Monkey clan. Next to Qin Wushuang, there are 2 spiritual beasts with superior strength. This also ensured that they could split into 2 groups to sneak attack the headquarters of the barbarian tribe and the Red Maple Human clan. When the guest with the purple beard heard up to this point, he was somewhat impressed as he said in a low voice, "Hearing your words, this Qin Wushuang does have some wisdom. With their frail strength, they would not have much chance of winning if they went to the Monkey King Mountain directly. Then, they would sneak attack their headquarters and lure them back to help. Then, they would catch one of the Red Maple Human clan and chase after them. Indeed, this is the best method. Only, does that Qin Wushuang truly have such exceptional strength?" Iron Holler said with a smile, "This is absolutely true. I got this information from someone who had participated in that battle. At that time, they only killed the direct descendants of the 8 great bandits of the Red Maple Human clan and did not kill anyone else. Most of the people of the Red Maple Human clan had scattered to the human countries. I spent a tremendous amount of effort to find someone who had personally experienced that battle through many layers of connections and found out the truth." When Qin Wushuang heard Iron Holler's narration earlier, it was as if he had seen it with his own eyes. Naturally, he was somewhat curious. Now that he heard Iron Holler's words, he knew the reason. So this was how he got his information. "Hey, Iron Holler, you've said so much without any basis, but you still haven't told me what cultivation level that Qin Wushuang has." Iron Holler laughed sinisterly. "This is not within the scope of my information. If you want to know, you can ask for a separate fee." The follower beside the guest with the purple beard glared. "Are you trying to raise the price?" Being glared at, Iron Holler's entire body trembled. He hurriedly waved his hand and shook his head. No. If you ask, I'll tell you everything I know. Then tell me, regarding that Qin Wushuang, I heard that his strength is only at the perfect stage. Of course, such strength is not worth mentioning in our Xian Yuan mount. However, there are always unspeakable variables on this kid. Usually, he would win by surprise and make people who are a few levels ahead of him suffer a great loss. According to my estimation, for sure, people at the refined Void Martial stage would die when they meet him. Only death awaits a refined Void Martial stage when encountering a perfect stage. Iron Holler, are you bullshitting? This does not conform to common sense. Everyone knew that the refined Void Martial stage was only 1 level higher than the perfect stage. However, this 1 level was a leap and a fatal difference. It was a substantial difference. After all, these belonged to 2 completely different categories. The Void Martial stage meant that one possessed a lot of divine power. Regardless of how strong one was at the spiritual martial force, they would only possess the strength within the spiritual martial force. At least, they would not possess divine power. Even if there were 10 perfect stage warriors, they would not be worth mentioning before a refined Void Martial stage. Thus, when Iron Holler said it this way, everyone felt it was too fake. It had overturned their common sense. How could they not swear? On the other hand, the guest with the purple beard only smiled and did not speak. Although this matter sounded strange, at his level, he was used to it. Apparently, Iron Holler had deliberately flattered this guest with the purple beard as he explained. That Qin Wushuang has a powerful bow and arrow. When he was only at the middle stage, he could injure a perfect stage warrior. And next to him, there are two ferocious spiritual beasts. I heard that at least one of them has entered the refined void martial stage. With such combat power, not to mention one elite warrior at the refined void martial stage, even 2 or 3 of them would suffer. Hearing Iron Holler's explanation, those freelance martial artists had finally understood. Inwardly, each of them started to make their own plans. They also started to weigh their own strength. Apparently, those freelance martial artists at the spiritual martial force had already decided to retreat. And those freelance martial artists at the refined void martial stage had already started to think about how to form a clique to take this mission. Iron Holler chuckled. Each of you think that the heavenly Luo Taoist sect would not settle accounts? Do you think it's easy to earn 80,000 gold crystal stones? This way, only elite warriors of the transformation void martial stage could take down this Qin Wushuang. For this money, ordinary people would not be able to earn it. Darn it, 80,000 gold crystal stones is not a lot to invite elite warriors of the transformation void martial stage. Initially, I thought that the heavenly Luo Taoist sect was generous. It seems that they are very calculating. Iron Holler said proudly, "Don't blame me for not reminding you. For sure, this bounty will increase. Without 150,000, you will not be able to mobilize the enthusiasm of elite warriors at the transformation void martial stage." Chapter 457. Since Qin Wushuang had stepped onto the path of martial arts, he had been tempered in his steel and was indomitable. The more setbacks he faced, the braver he became. The stronger the enemy, the more tyrannical they were, the more he could stimulate his potential and deal with them. Starting from the wealthy Su family, more than 1 or 2 powerhouses wanted to step on Qin Wushuang's head. The wealthy Su family, the Shimin feudal lords, the West Shu, the Great Wu, the Devil Boy, the archaic mystery sect, the 9 Palace faction. There were too many to mention. However, none of them could make Qin Wushuang yield, not to mention destroying Qin Wushuang's belief. Currently, the heavenly Luo Taoist sect was a giant figure that could not be offended. However, Qin Wushuang would not be scared by this giant figure and would not tremble before it. He only had one belief. Regardless of the height of the mountain, as long as he had confidence and strategy, he would be able to cross it. As long as he had perseverance and the means, he would be able to flatten it. Earlier, he had thought that the heavenly Luo Taoist sect would not go to war for a mere Zhuotianzi. However, thinking about it now, he had overestimated the tolerance of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. From the way the heavenly Luo Taoist sect kept increasing the bounty, apparently, they wanted to get their hands on Qin Wushuang. On the first day that Qin Wushuang had arrived in this world, he had understood the cruelty of the struggles in this world. The fights between little martial arts students would not stop until one of them died. Not to mention the level of the major powerhouses in the Xian Yuan Mound. So what if they would not stop until one of them died? Since he had stepped onto the path of martial arts, when had he not fought to rise from the jaws of death? Only when he did not hesitate to die could he truly achieve a strong heart and an indestructible belief. The heavenly Luo Taoist sect was going to fight. When he saw Bao Bao and Lone becoming restless, Qin Wushuang used his eyes to stop their impulse. Now, he was most curious about the identity of this guest with the purple beard. From this guest with the purple beard, he felt a form of unfathomable strength. Although this strength was not as unfathomable as Li Bai, nor as unfathomable as Senior Yin Shuechun, without a doubt, he had surpassed all the elite warriors Qin Wushuang had met besides those two. The calmest one was Jiufeng Yunfei. The young man continued to drink his wine, as if he had turned a deaf ear to the conversation. He had no interest in the reward at all. However, inadvertently, Jiufeng Feiyun's eyes would look towards Qin Wushuang. Evidently, Jiufeng Feiyun naturally knew of Qin Wushuang's identity. Of course, Qin Wushuang knew that since this Jiu Feng Yunfei was an old friend of the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan, he would not betray him at this moment. The guest with the purple beard stroked his long beard and said with a smile, "I heard that the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect once sent a disciple to the human countries. Do you know about this matter?" Since Iron Holler had received benefits, he naturally would not hide it. He smiled and said, "This is no longer news. Customer, you must have come from a faraway place for the first time. Otherwise, how could you not have heard of this? Although it's old news, it must be more detailed coming from the mouth of someone like you who sells information. Tell me about it." Hee hee. That Nine Palace faction is hosted by the nephew of an elder of the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect. In fact, this should be a branch of the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect. It's reasonable for the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect to intervene. Initially, the disciple at the refined void martial stage sent by the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect had already grasped the situation. Unexpectedly, a person came out and forced that disciple at the refined void martial stage to retreat. Oh, the guest with the purple beard smiled. Apparently, he was interested in this topic. Continue. That person is a girl, a young girl. As for her exact identity, no accurate information has spread out. Without a doubt, that girl must be a disciple of a major powerhouse in the Xianyuan Mount. Or else, she would not have the strength to stop that person of the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect. The guest with the purple beard frowned slightly. Is it true that no one knows the exact identity of that girl? Iron Holler chuckled, and a trace of imperceptible craftiness flashed across his face. He shook his head. No one really knows. You are lying. The guest with the purple beard said lightly. A moment ago, there was a trace of strange change in your smile. This is a sign of lying. This guest with the purple beard saw through everything clearly. Inadvertently, he had exposed Iron Holler's lie. Cold sweat emerged from Iron Holler's entire body. The expression of that subordinate next to the guest with the purple beard turned cold. Speak the truth. Iron Holler nodded with a guilty conscience. That girl should be Miss Murong Su of the Floating Snow House. That subordinate looked at the guest with the purple beard and took a step back. He nodded and did not speak another word. Didn't you say that no one knows her identity? The guest with the purple beard asked lightly. Cold sweat emerged from Iron Holler's forehead. This is only a guess. There is no concrete evidence. Suddenly, the guest with the purple beard laughed freely. Don't be nervous. Earlier, you said that behind this information, there is another guess of yours. Why don't you tell everyone? Inwardly, Iron Holler felt troubled. Speak. The voice of the guest with the purple beard did not sound rushed. However, such light words made Iron Holler not dare to disobey. Sir, initially, I wanted to sell this information for money. Who asked you to be a knowledgeable person? Iron Holler had a long face and was extremely unwilling in his heart. However, under the inadvertent intimidation of the purple-bearded guest, he still obediently submitted and did not dare to disobey. Inwardly, Qin Wushuang was puzzled. Just who was this guest with a purple beard, and why was he so interested in him, Qin Wushuang? Of course, he also wanted to hear what other shocking words this Iron Holler had to say. Iron Holler swallowed a mouthful of saliva and worked hard to say, in fact, my guess is also related to the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect. The expression of the guest with the purple beard was as calm as an ancient well without a single ripple. He listened quietly. Since it was related to the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect, naturally, Qin Wushuang was more concerned. He wanted to see how many tricks this Heavenly Luo Taoist sect could play. According to common sense, even if a young man from the human countries had good talent to the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect, how much of a threat could he pose? Iron Holler's words had resonated with everyone. Indeed, everyone found it strange. With the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect's position in the Xianyuan Mound, how could they make such a big fuss? They appeared to be flustered and exasperated when they issued a second-level assassination order against a young man from the human countries. Could there be some inside story? Even Qin Wushuang felt curious. He wanted to hear what exclusive opinion this Iron Holler had on this matter. I thought about it, and thought that this matter might be related to that Miss Moo Rome. Iron Holler spoke astonishing words. Many people know that there's a marriage contract between the floating snow house and the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. The main character of the marriage contract is Miss Moo Rome of the floating snow house. On the other hand, it is young Master Luo Ting, one of the most exceptional young disciples of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. And 1 or 2 years ago, when the marriage contract was about to end, Miss Moo Rome ran away from home. Many people had heard about these gossips in the Jianghu. Now, when Iron Holler had brought it up and brought up the old matter, they had some impression of it. Those who had not heard about these gossips started to inquire from the people next to them. Apparently, they were extremely interested in this matter. Think about it. Why did that Miss Moo Rome run away from home? Of course, she ran away from the marriage. Why did she run away from the marriage? Apparently, she did not want to marry that young Master Luo Ting. Or in other words, she did not want to get married. Regardless of the reason, to young Master Luo Ting, it was a great humiliation. When his fiancée ran away from home when the marriage contract was about to end, not to mention that young Master Luo Ting is a famous young talent in the Xin Yuan Mound. Even us mediocre martial artists would feel uncomfortable, right? Everyone nodded thoughtfully. Even Qin Wushuang came to a realization when he heard these words. That Miss Moo Rong had left the Xian Yuan Mound for this reason and ventured into the human countries. What this Iron Holler means, could it be that second-level assassination order is related to that young Master Luo Ting? When Qin Wushuang thought here, he could not help but feel somewhat surprised. The guest with the purple beard only smiled. However, within this smile, there was a trace of something different, and that subordinate next to him kept sneering. On the other hand, Jiufeng Yunfei suddenly revealed a strange, faint smile on the corner of his mouth. It was as if he had discovered something interesting. Qin Wushuang was extremely sensitive. Soon, he felt that something was wrong with this atmosphere. Keep talking. The guest with the purple beard shot an indifferent glance at Iron Holler. I know you still have things to say. Iron Holler was a smart person. At this moment, he also felt that something was wrong. However, since he was riding a tiger, he could not get off. He could only continue to speak. That Qin Wushuang did not return to the human countries after annihilating the Red Maple human clan. All signs indicated that they had already entered the Xian Yuan Mound. Most importantly, don't forget, this is Qin Wushuang's surname. Surname Qin, Heavenly Emperor Qin clan? No way. That Qin Wushuang, could he be the descendant of the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan? It's impossible to be such a coincidence. The sound of discussion rose and fell one after another. Apparently, Iron Holler's heavy news had caused chaos at the scene. If he is a disciple of the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan, then I must respect him. I have lived for most of my life, and I have never submitted to any powerhouse. I only submit to the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. Yes, if that's the case, I will not get involved. If it's for money, I would have signed up to deal with the 100-Leaf Qin clan. I will never get involved in matters related to the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. Apparently, the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan had a good reputation. Half of the freelance martial artists of the scene had expressed their stance. If Qin Wushuang was truly related to the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan, they would rather give up on this mission than to earn money that went against their conscience. Once, the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan was the symbol of the Xian Yuan Mound. It represented fairness and justice. In the history of the Xian Yuan Mound, it was the powerhouse with the highest reputation among the people. Now that guest with the purple beard and his subordinate stood up. Suddenly, the guest with the purple beard said with a smile, "Is the butler of the Union here?" "Sir, at your service." A butler walked over. "I will also issue a mission. I will offer a reward of 100,000 gold crystal stones. Those who provide me with clues about Qin Wushuang and help me find Qin Wushuang will receive 100,000 gold crystal stones. Remember, my reward is different than the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. They want a dead person, and I want to see a living person." When the guest with the purple beard said here, he laughed and turned to speak to his subordinate. "Wuda, You will be in charge of contacting him. I will leave first. Of course, this guest with the purple beard was Mu Rong Qianji, the lord of the floating snow house. And his subordinate was his trusted subordinate, Wu De. Qin Wushuang had also not expected this sudden move from the guest with the purple beard. As he watched the departing figure of the guest with the purple beard, Qin Wushuang could not help but fall into deep thought. He felt that this situation had become even more complicated and confusing. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 458. After Mu Rong Qianji left, everyone present was intimidated by his powerful aura. The originally noisy hall immediately became much quieter. These loose cultivators who were originally very noisy had now turned into whispers. They lowered their heads and whispered to each other. It was very obvious that they were also very afraid of the followers Mu Rong Qianji had left behind. Although no one present knew Mu Rong Qianji, some of the more active ones who had been in the underworld for a long time already had some ideas in their hearts. After the procedures were completed, Wu De walked out from inside and walked to Iron Holler's side. He stared at Iron Holler for a while and laughed strangely. He then turned around and walked out of the door in large strides. This action caused Iron Holler to break out in cold sweat. His hand trembled slightly, and the hand that was holding the wine cup couldn't help but tremble. He faintly realized that although this business seemed to have earned him 3,000 gold crystal stones, it seemed to have caused a huge disaster. Just as he was about to say something to remedy the situation, how could Wu De care about a small character like Iron Holler? He had already left without a trace. Iron Holler dejectedly sat back in his seat with a distressed face. Around him, the sound of heavy breathing could be heard. It was obvious that these people had been suppressed for too long. Now that the crisis was over, they finally dared to breathe loudly. Someone saw Iron Holler's distressed face and couldn't help but ridicule. Iron Holler, what happened to you? You made a windfall. Can you pay for today's wine? That's right. Even if you pay for everyone's wine tonight, you'll still earn. That's right, that's right. Since you've made a windfall, it wouldn't be right if you don't treat us. These people all started to jeer. Iron Holler, on the other hand, had a sullen face. His mouth couldn't stop muttering to himself. No one knew what he was muttering. At this time, a cold voice suddenly sounded. It's hard to say whether you'll earn or not. This money isn't that easy to get. If you're not careful, you'll lose both your life and your money. The one who spoke was the loose cultivator who had previously accused the attendant of deceiving Qin Wushuang and the others. He was the one who refused Qin Wushuang's treat. This person's expression was cold. When he spoke without restraint. Unexpectedly, his words hit the nail on the head. Iron Holler's face was deathly pale as he gritted his teeth. Ha! Iron Holler, look at your cowardly appearance. Are you really scared to this extent? Don't tell me you don't want to treat me, so you're deliberately acting like this? These itinerant cultivators spoke one after another. The cold rogue cultivator from before, however, smiled coolly. I'm not pretending. If you say that he is faking it, then you are the ones who are confused. This Iron Holler knows more than you do. Jiufeng Yunfei suddenly smiled and put down the cup in his hand. Bill. He casually put down a few crystals and pointed at Qin Wushuang's table. I'll settle the accounts of the three friends at that table. After he finished speaking, he cupped his hands toward Qin Wushuang, smiled, and walked out without greeting him. Qin Wushuang was stunned. Just as he was about to stand up, he heard the cold rogue cultivator next to him continue speaking. The one who walked out just now is an understanding person. A truly understanding person should leave after drinking the wine in the wine pot. Saying this, the cold rogue cultivator also slapped the table. Waiter Bill. Hey you, what do you mean by only saying half of what you want to say? If you have something to say it out loud. Why are you playing riddles with us? That's right. We brothers are all boorish people. We don't understand your tone. That cold rogue cultivator walked to the door and suddenly turned around. He smiled strangely. Don't tell me you still don't understand. Iron Holler knew better than anyone else the background of those two people just now. He had already planned to cover up his lie and talk back. But that kind of expert could see through Iron Holler's thoughts and point out that he was lying. Iron Holler, if I were you, I would have left already. But whether or not I can leave. Before this person could finish speaking, a cold laugh came from outside the door. He can't leave. Before the voice died away, 3 to 5 well-equipped warriors rushed in from outside the door. Their attire fully revealed their identities. The personal warriors of the prefecture master. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that these 4 people were not to be trifled with. They all shut their mouths at the same time. The cold rogue cultivator from before shook his head helplessly. His face was expressionless as he looked at these warriors with some ridicule and mockery. Then he walked out. You wait a moment, too. That cold rogue cultivator's eyes flashed. He held his saber horizontally in front of his chest. What? You want to stay too? This person's tone was arrogant and unyielding, but he didn't show the slightest fear. The leader of the 4 warriors saw that this person's aura was not ordinary. Although he wasn't afraid, he sized him up and knew that this person was not someone to be trifled with. He immediately waved his hand. Although this person is talking nonsense, he didn't offend the honored guest. Only this Iron Holler can't control his mouth and offended the honored guest. Take him down first. Iron Holler's expression changed. He suddenly dodged under the table. An earthy yellow light was released from his body, and he fled underground. This was clearly not an escape technique. Instead, it was using a talisman to travel underground to escape. When the leader of the warriors saw this, he sneered and said with a smile, "Insignificant skill." With a shake of his sleeve, he opened his 5 fingers. A huge handprint emerged from his palm and continuously enlarged, pressing down on the ground with a loud rumble. With this pressure, the ground suddenly shook. It was as if the entire ground had suddenly collapsed, shaking endlessly. It was also this pressure that was an invisible talisman. It was specially used to restrain ordinary underground techniques. It reached the effect of pointing at the ground as steel, making it difficult for those who used underground techniques to move an inch underground. When his hand was revealed, a warrior behind him immediately took out a strange instrument. Its appearance was like a compass, and he placed it on the ground. There, following the direction pointed by this person, the leader of the warriors suddenly swept out like a gust of wind, leaving behind afterimages in the air. Suddenly, the leader of the warriors shouted loudly and stabbed the short spear in his hand into the ground with all his strength. Only a miserable cry could be heard from the ground. Following the momentum of the short spear being pulled out, an arrow of blood soared into the sky, shooting straight towards the ceiling of the Union. When this arrow of blood dispersed, it immediately scattered a rain of blood, shooting in all directions. Fortunately, everyone present was an expert. When they saw the rain of blood shooting towards them, they casually waved their sleeves and swept away the rain of blood, preventing it from contaminating their bodies. Qin Wushuang and the other 2 had been sitting there the whole time, watching the entire process of this unforeseen event. Could it be that the warriors under the Mansion Lord were relying on the power of the government to kill without restraint like this? When the leader of the warriors killed a person, it was as if he was stepping on an ant. From his expression, it was impossible to tell that he had killed a person. Instead, he said casually to the manager in charge of the Union, "Mr. Manager, I will have to trouble you to clean up." However, the expression of that manager did not look good as he mumbled, "Captain Ku, this Iron Holler has always made a living by selling information. He has been in this business for a few dozen years. I don't know what kind of mistake he has made to be met with such an unexpected disaster today. Besides, if you're going to enforce the law, please take this Iron Holler away. It's not proper to enforce the law in my Union's territory, right?" That Captain Ku's eyelids twitched lazily as he shot a glance at that manager. "This way. Do you have any objections?" "Captain Ku, my Union has always been a place where freelance martial artists appear. If you want to enforce the law in the Union, you should at least ask clearly, right? After all, this is still the Union's territory." Ha ha ha. The Union's territory? That Captain Ku's tone was extremely unreasonable and tyrannical. Let me tell you, in the Orderly Mountain Prefecture, there's no one's territory, only the territory of the Orderly Mountain Prefecture. After he had finished, he waved his hand and walked outside. This rude and unreasonable attitude left the deacon in charge of the guild speechless. What else could he do when encountering such a crab that walked sideways? Even if he was right, it would not be as powerful as his fist. The other party was right. Within the Orderly Mountain Prefecture, only the territory of the Orderly Mountain Prefecture belonged to the Orderly Mountain Prefecture. Not many people had the power to resist the prefecture lord of the Orderly Mountain Prefecture. Strangely, the callous freelance martial artist who had already walked to the door did not take the opportunity to leave. Instead, he stood on the side with his arms crossed and watched everything with a cold look. That captain could walk to the door and shot a glance at this person. What? If we don't cause you trouble, you won't leave? That person gave a cold sneer and sneered. Such prestige, such strong murderous intent. No wonder you are the personal warrior of the prefecture lord. Admirable. That Captain Ku was also a person who knew how to judge the situation. He knew that he would not gain any advantage from this person. He only sneered. Don't say that we are bullying people. Since that iron holler could not control his mouth, he deserved to die. No one can blame him. I'm afraid that your flattery has hit the wrong spot. You think that iron holler offended the VIP. Even if the VIP thinks this way, with their temperament, they might not want iron holler's life. You guys are in such a hurry to curry favor. Captain Ku said unhappily. From your tone, it seems that you want to fight for justice for iron holler. Qin Wushuang had a good impression of that callous freelance martial artist. At this moment, he stepped out to mediate. Everyone, you have killed him and shown off your power. It's about enough. In this freelance martial artist union, there are many hot-blooded men. You guys are not determined to offend the public, right? Qin Wushuang was the first to step out. Immediately, a few freelance martial artists also stepped out. Yes, even the personal warriors of the prefecture lord must be reasonable. Could it be that we freelance martial artists deserve to be beaten and killed? That's right. Even if we bring this matter to the prefecture lord, we can seek justice. That Captain Ku glanced at Qin Wushuang, but stopped while he was ahead. He really did not have the courage to do something that would offend the public. He waved his hand and said a few harsh words. Let's end it here today. You guys better watch your mouths. Say what you should say, and don't spread rumors about what you shouldn't say. After saying that, he quickly retreated. This sudden bloodbath had brought the guild's loose practitioners closer to each other. What the hell is going on? Just saying a few words and we will lose our lives. Do we freelance martial artists really have no status? Isn't that right? What's the background of that purple-bearded guest? Iron Holler said a few words to him, and he offended the VIP? The callous rogue cultivator sneered at the door. This isn't the problem of the esteemed guest. It's just that these fellows are trying to flatter the esteemed guest. In the end, who is that person? You still don't understand? That lord is obviously related to the people that Iron Holler mentioned. What do you mean by related? That's because you guys are ignorant and inexperienced. That person is the master of the floating snow house, an elite warrior ranked in the top 50 of a Xian Yuan Mount. Even the prefecture lord wants to curry favor with him. Mu Rong Qianji. As soon as he said these words, Qin Wushuang was shocked inwardly. All the guesses in his mind had been confirmed. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 459. Mu Rong Qianji. This time, even Bao Bao was greatly surprised. The floating snow house shared some relationship with the monkey clan. However, Bao Bao did not know this master Mu Rong Qianji. Boss, it's the master of the floating snow house. He put a bounty on you? Where did this come from? Bao Bao sent his voice to ask. Of course, Qin Wushuang did not have a clue. Could it be because Qin Wushuang had that relationship with Miss Mu Rong? If that was the case, then the floating snow house's housemaster was truly going too far. While the guild was filled with clamorous discussions, Qin Wushuang did not want to linger any longer. He put down the wine cup and left quickly with Bao Bao and Lone. With the disturbance between the heavenly Luo Daoist sect and the floating snow house, Qin Wushuang's path in the Xianyuan Mound had become much more difficult. Currently, he did not know whether to thank Captain Ku for killing that talkative Iron Holler, or to condemn him for killing the innocent. To Qin Wushuang, that conversation with Iron Holler was extremely disadvantageous. It was because Iron Holler had clearly said that Qin Wushuang had already entered the Xianyuan Mound and was related to the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. This way, without a doubt, they would face another layer of potential danger when they traveled the Xianyuan Mound. To Qin Wushuang, this was definitely a great trouble. When they returned to the inn, Bao Bao was still chattering endlessly. Apparently, he was still brooding over Mu Rong Qianji's bounty. From Bao Bao's point of view, without a doubt, Mu Rong Qianji's actions were rubbing salt on Qin Wushuang's wound. Lone also swore he could not watch over his own daughter and took out his anger on our boss. Perhaps this master of the floating snow house has a high strength. However, in terms of being a person, he has no principles. Bao Bao mumbled, "Boss, why do you think this Lord Mu Rong is doing this? Could it be because Sister Mu Rong is close to you?" Lone twitched his mouth. "How is it close? Nothing happened between our boss and Miss Mu Rong, right?" "I also think so. Could it be that Lord Mu Rong had done this to prove to the heavenly Luo Daoist sect? If that's the case, then Lord Mu Rong is too disappointing. What a disappointment. Bullying the kind and fearing the evil." Qin Wushuang listened to their endless discussion and tried to explain, "You too. Don't be so hasty to come to a conclusion. From what I can see, Miss Morong's father doesn't have much hostility. If he is hostile, he only needs to add some additional rewards on top of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect's reward." These words did remind Bao Bao. He thought quickly and slapped his thigh. That's right. Lord Morong kept saying that he wanted to see the living person. From the looks of it, he doesn't intend to die of old age. When he said here, Bao Bao laughed strangely. "Boss, I understand. Perhaps Lord Murong also wants to see your character and cultivation, choosing a son-in-law." As soon as Lone heard this, his gossipy heart suddenly overflowed. His face moved closer like a gossipy woman. Qin Wushuang said angrily, "No matter what you say, it's all because of your mouths. Can you guys talk less?" Of course, it's not impossible to talk less. However, since you have a mouth, wouldn't it be a waste if you don't talk? "Boss, honestly, let me ask you, how do you feel about Miss Morong?" For this extremely gossipy question, not only was Bao Bao deeply curious, even Lone also moved closer. He waited for Qin Wushuang's answer while worrying about personal gains and losses. Qin Wushuang heard them repeatedly talking about Miss Morong's voice and appearance, as well as her extraordinary demeanor. He must say that regardless of talent, martial arts, appearance, or temperament, Qin Wushuang had never seen this Miss Morong in his life. Now, he had learned that this Miss Morong had gone out to escape the marriage. On top of appreciation, Qin Wushuang could not help but feel some admiration. One had to know that for a girl to have such courage, it was very impressive in this world. "Boss, say something," Bao Bao urged with a smile. Qin Wushuang gave a long sigh. "Miss Morong and I only have a gentleman's friendship. In terms of Miss Morong, she is indeed the best girl I've ever seen. But if I were to say that I have a deeper affection for her, then that would be rude." "Boss," Bao Bao was almost driven mad. "Then do you like her, or do you not like her? Can you be more direct?" Qin Wushuang was speechless at Bao Bao's simple logic. Could it be that in this world, there are only two choices, like and dislike? "Boss, I know what you want to say. However, I will ask you now, if there are only two choices, like and dislike, how would you choose?" This question was straight to his heart. It made it impossible for Qin Wushuang to be ambiguous. After thinking about it, Qin Wushuang gave a long sigh. "Then let's just like her. For a beauty like Miss Morong, who would say they don't like her?" "Ha ha, then it's easy. I see that Miss Morong also has a good impression of you. Boss Wu Shuang, I think that heavenly Luo Taoist sect has gone too far. Let's just steal their wife. Let's anger them to death. That's right. Since the heavenly Luo Taoist sect wants to kill you, let's slap their face. The louder the slap, the better. Apparently, Lone was the one who desired to see the world in chaos. At this moment, it would be strange if he did not jeer. Boss, don't hesitate. Let's do it this way. Miss Murong's character and strength are all high, and she is as beautiful as a flower. Where are you going to find such a good girl? Haha, I think it will work. It's good this way. The most important thing is to let the heavenly Luo Taoist sect know our boss's power. Lone cheered from aside. These two buffoons, one after the other, were discussing enthusiastically. It was as if they were discussing their marriage. Qin Wushuang felt deeply speechless. He admitted that regardless of how he looked at it, that Miss Morong held a special weight in Qin Wushuang's heart. This weight was completely different from other girls. To senior sister Zhou Fu, Qin Wushuang felt a sense of camaraderie. To Tong Yao, it was a pure friendship that had gone through hardships. Although they had met by chance, each of Miss Morong's movements had touched a certain string deep inside Qin Wushuang's heart. Qin Wushuang had never thought deeply about it. However, he also knew that it was a completely different feeling. Now, after Bao Bao and Lone had dug it out, Qin Wushuang was surprised to find that the image of Miss Morong had suddenly come alive in his heart. When they had first met, that heavenly sound of the zither, that natural and unrestrained behavior. Then, Miss Morong had helped him out of trouble several times. She had also shown a side of her that was not only gentle and virtuous. Now, after hearing about Miss Morong's background, those fragments of her past kept intertwining. Instantly, in his mind, Miss Morong had become much more three-dimensional. Indeed, this girl that was soft on the outside and tough on the inside had an outstanding temperament. When he thought here, Qin Wushuang could not help but give a light sigh. Boss, why are you sighing? Bao Bao asked with a faint smile. The situation is difficult. Regardless of me or the entire Qin family, we are all in an abyss of suffering. If I spend so much time thinking about these matters, without a doubt, I would be worrying myself for nothing. When Qin Wushuang said here, he had regained his calmness. He said, from now on, this topic ends here. Regardless of 100,000 or 1,000,000, it will not stop me from heading to the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. I only know that the more difficult the obstacles blocking my path, the stronger my heart will be. Boss, then, Bao Bao, I will remember Miss Morong's kindness. If one day we can truly make a name for ourselves in the Xianyuan Mound, all of our problems will be solved. Now, even if we break our heads, it would be useless. With our strength, we are powerless to get involved in this whirlpool. We only have one goal right now, and that is to become stronger, to keep becoming stronger. Bao Bao and Lone were infected by Qin Wushuang's determined attitude as they nodded. Boss, you are right. We will all listen to you. Xianyuan Mound, just wait. One day, the name of us three brothers will become the legends of the Xianyuan Mound. After they had unified their thoughts, Qin Wushuang was no longer confused. Even if the outside world was in an uproar, everyone was discussing how to deal with Qin Wushuang. However, how could these people know that Qin Wushuang was right under their eyes? Was he going to watch their ugly performances one by one? Qin Wushuang also knew that this orderly mountain prefecture was located at the border between the dispersed Praying Mountain and the Xianyuan Mound. Thus, naturally, the topic of Qin Wushuang would become more lively. It was because if Qin Wushuang wanted to enter the Xianyuan Mound, he must pass through this orderly mountain prefecture. Thus, he should not linger at this orderly mountain prefecture for too long. On the second day, Qin Wushuang and his two friends had paid the bill. Just as they were walking out of the inn, Qin Wushuang's sharp eyes saw a figure flash across the street in a hurry. That person just happened to look at the inn. Apparently, he was also astonished when he saw Qin Wushuang and his two friends. It's him. Qin Wushuang's heart sank. Fortunately, after that person had glanced at them, he did not look at them any longer. He quickened his steps and flashed across the street and disappeared into the crowd. General Manager Su. Apparently, Bao Bao and Lone also recognized this person. This guy is not dead. Bao Bao's expression was extremely unsightly. He was smart and knew that the situation was not good when he saw this General Manager Su. Boss, what should we do? Let's leave first and find a place to change our appearance. This General Manager Su is extremely suspicious. The outside world is spreading the news that Chun Sin's group was completely annihilated. Now, he must have many guesses when he sees us. If he guesses any clues, we will be in big trouble. Bao Bao and Lone agreed deeply. The three of them did not linger and walked quickly towards the outside of the city gate. The process of leaving the city was much simpler than entering the city. After Qin Wushuang and his two friends left the orderly mountain capital city, they headed north without stopping. After the commotion caused by Iron Holler, with General Manager Su's suspicious and cunning nature, it would not be impossible for him to guess Qin Wushuang's identity once he combined the three of them in the battle with the 100-Leaf Qin clan. Once he guessed it, it meant that they would be exposed. What awaited Qin Wushuang and his friends would be an endless pursuit. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 460. Indeed, as Qin Wushuang had expected, that General Manager Su had been recuperating in a secret place. After he had come out, he learned that the team led by Commander Chen San had been completely annihilated. In other words, he was the only survivor. However, what he had seen a moment ago had caused an extra layer of doubt to appear in his suspicious mind. The cultivation of these Wu brothers isn't very high. At that time, the enemies that had launched a surprise attack on the Duckbeak Mountain had also killed all of my team. How could these Wu brothers be unharmed and all three of them had survived? General Manager Su's head was full of questions. This time, he had just recovered from his internal injuries. Initially, he had come to the orderly mountain capital city to visit a friend who lived here. In a moment, he had arrived at the house he was visiting. This was a small manor. Although it was not big, it had been built with exquisite craftsmanship. In this orderly mountain capital city, where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, it meant that the owner of this manor had done well in the city to own such a small manor. This was not General Manager Su's territory. Thus, he had been extremely careful with each detail. Even to the gatekeeper, he was courteous. He handed over the visiting card. When that gatekeeper saw General Manager Su's temperament and that he was looking for the owner, he did not dare to neglect him. He let him in and waited for a moment in the courtyard. Then, a straightforward voice came from the corridor. "Ha ha, Senior Su, what brings you here today?" When General Manager Su heard this voice, he also beamed with joy. "Senior Dong, I came in a hurry and did not prepare any generous gifts. I'm so scared." A middle-aged man walked out from inside. Although he had a short stature, his face showed a vigorous expression. He hugged General Manager Su. "Please come in. Please come in." After the host and guest had sat down, tea was served. "Senior Su, I heard a while ago that you had gotten involved in the muddy water of the 100-Leaf Qin clan. I was worried for you. I heard that Chun Sin's entire team had been annihilated. I thought you. Fortunately, us brothers can meet again." This middle-aged man had the surname Dong, and his name was Dong Xiong. He had known this General Manager Su since he was a teenager. They had traveled together, killed enemies together, gone through trials and tribulations together. Thus, they shared an extraordinary relationship. Therefore, Dong Xiong did not hide anything when he spoke. General Manager Su gave a light sigh. Indeed, he still felt a lingering fear when he talked about the old matter of the 100-Leaf Qin clan. Now that he thought about it, he still felt a little scared. That battle had given him a psychological shock that he still couldn't completely calm down even now. Before the battle, they had made all kinds of preparations. No matter how they looked at it, Commander Chen felt that they would definitely win that battle. But the result was completely different. "Brother Dong, I won't hide it from you. Brother, I participated in that battle. Moreover, I almost didn't get to see you again. That battle sigh. General Manager Su sighed. In fact, he had come to the orderly mountain capital city to escape. He planned to stay further away from the 100-Leaf State and that 100-Leaf Chain clan. This was to prevent him, the fish that had escaped the net, from becoming the target of the 100-Leaf Chain clan. To put it bluntly, he was now a stray dog. They didn't dare to live in that area. After all, after the 100-Leaf Chain clan had recovered, surely they would know that he was the fish that had escaped the net. For sure, they would use all possible means to hunt him down. Because of this, he had headed north and planned to escape the limelight. Brother Su, don't beat around the bush between us. Is it that you can't stay in that area anymore? Dong Xiong asked. The 100-Leaf Chain clan knows that I am the fish that had escaped the net. They have already started to look for me all over the world. I cannot stay in the Black Raven Royal City, the Yellow Wind Royal City, and these two territories. The best way is to go as far as possible. This time, I only wanted to visit you to tell you that I am going to seek refuge in the north. From now on, it will not be easy for us to meet again. I don't have many friends that I care about. Brother Dong is one of them. These words caused Dong Xiong to sigh in his heart. He could not help but think of the time when the two of them had fought side by side in their youth. Brother Su, tell me, why are you doing this? The 100-Leaf Chain clan is a branch of the Heavenly Emperor Chain clan. Although the Heavenly Emperor Chain clan has lost their power, they still have their strength and foundation. If you provoke them for no reason, aren't you just looking for trouble? You have been smart all your life and knew how to scheme. How come you are so stupid this time? The corner of General Manager Su's mouth twitched, full of bitterness. He raised his head and said, Brother Dong, with our talents and aptitudes, do you think we can still have a breakthrough in cultivation in this lifetime? Dong Xiong gave a long sigh. This is extremely difficult. Us brothers know each other well. Regardless of you or me, we have less than 1% chance to break into the profound void martial stage. That's right, General Manager Su nodded. The reason why I risked universal condemnation and participated in the siege of the 100-Leaf Chain clan was because of my own selfishness. I also thought that in my lifetime, if I do not have any special fortuitous opportunities or external help, it would be impossible for me to enter the profound void martial stage. However, it's different for the 100-Leaf Chain clan. As long as I enter the mind of the 100-Leaf Chain clan, there are countless wealth, countless fortuitous opportunities. When he said here, the fanatical look in General Manager Su's eyes still appeared blazing. The 100-Leaf Chain clan possessed wealth that could rival a country. It would be a lie to say that the outside world was not jealous. Even the prefecture lord of the Orderly Mountain Prefecture was somewhat envious when he talked about the 100-Leaf Chain clan. Naturally, the strength of the prefecture lord surpassed anyone in the 100-Leaf Chain clan. Naturally, the power of the subordinates of the prefecture lord were stronger than the 100-Leaf Chain clan. However, in terms of wealth, even as the prefecture lord, he had to admit defeat. However, Dong Xiong said, Senior Su, what you said is true. However, you must know that those wealth and fortuitous opportunities are almost the private property of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. If you covet them, it's the same as snatching food from the mouth of the Heavenly Emperor Chain clan. The facts have proven that the 100-Leaf Chain clan is not as weak as you think. The muscles on General Manager Su's face trembled slightly. The 100-Leaf Chain clan has hidden too much of their strength. If I was given another chance, even if the 100-Leaf Chain clan were 10 times more prominent, I would not be moved. In that battle, if I had not escaped quickly, I am afraid I would not have survived. You're lucky enough. Everyone knows that in that battle, those freelance martial artists organized by Chun Sun were completely annihilated. Not a single one of them survived. When Dong Xiong said here, he also looked at General Manager Su with a bitter smile. At that time, I thought you had also died. However, General Manager Su frowned slightly and could not help but ask, Senior Dong, is it true that the outside world is spreading the rumor that all of us were annihilated and not a single one of us survived? Yes, according to everyone's guess, most likely no fish had escaped the net. You were truly an accident. General Manager Su shook his head lightly. No, regarding the annihilation of the entire team, even if I was the exception, this statement would not be valid. From what I know, there were survivors among the people that participated in this matter, and there was more than one. Dong Xiong was extremely astonished as he said stutteringly, "Impossible? How many of you had participated in that battle?" The total number was 85. I remember it clearly. Each general manager had a team of 20 people. For general managers, a total of 80 people. Then there were Chun's son and the other 5. Senior Dong, before I came to your place, I saw a strange thing on the street. Please consider it carefully. Seeing him speaking with such seriousness, Dong Xiong could not help but ask, "What is it?" Speaking of this matter, it's related to the attack on the 100-Leaf Qin clan. At the moment, General Manager Su explained the entire sequence of events. He explained the entire process of how Qin Wushuang and the other 2 had signed up, as well as how he had met them on the street. Senior Dong, regarding those 3 brothers, I already had my suspicions. However, we were pressed for time, and Chun's son had only given us a short amount of time. We did not have the time to check their identities. I only remember that these 3 brothers had said that they had come from the Great Gobi. Their surname was Wu. After Dong Xiong had finished listening, he also felt somewhat strange. He nodded and said, thoughtfully, "It would make sense if one of the 3 brothers had survived. However, according to your description, you guys were in a bad situation in that battle. And according to the news after the battle, there was only one survivor from the battle at the Duckbeak Mountain. Of course, that survivor was you. Then, how did the 3 brothers of the Wu family survive?" That's what I suspected. With their strength, they were not particularly outstanding. They could even be said to be below average. General Manager Su tried hard to recall every detail of the past. However, in my memory, the leader of the 3 Wu brothers was extremely calm. He had a quick reaction and did not let anything out. "Senior Su, are you suspecting that they were not freelance martial artists, but spies sent by the 100-Leaf Qin clan?" When he said here, Dong Xiong waved his hand and said with a decisive tone, "Let me give you a piece of advice. Regardless of whether those 3 were spies from the 100-Leaf Qin clan, the matter of the 100-Leaf Qin clan ends here. Don't think about the million bounty. Those are all unrealistic. You escaped with your life last time. Could it be that you want to get involved again?" General Manager Su's expression was strange. He did not say yes or no. He frowned as if he was thinking about something. His expression was extremely focused. After a moment, suddenly this General Manager Su slapped his thigh. No. Senior Dong, I feel that something is not right." "What is not right?" Suddenly, General Manager Su asked with a smile. "Senior Dong, in these 2 days, what lively things have happened in the capital city? Think about it." "Lively things?" Dong Xiong thought for a moment. "In terms of lively things, of course the floating snow house master has paid a visit to our orderly mountain capital city. What else? Last night's massacre at the Freelance Martial Artist Union. Does it count as one of them?" "Ha. It's only a lowly freelance martial artist that got killed. It's not worth mentioning. That freelance martial artist is not worth mentioning. However, the words that he posted are worth pondering over." Because of his words, the floating snow house master had offered a bounty of 100,000 gold crystal stones to match the mission issued by the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Inside this matter, it's all related to a name. Qin Wushuang, right? Dong Xiong twirled his beard and smiled. The world has changed. Now, the young people of the human countries are able to cause such a commotion in the Xianyuan Mound. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.qijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 461. Qin Wushuang. Qin Wushuang. General Manager Su kept repeating this name. Human countries. This guy, haha. Senior Su, what are you talking about? Dong Xiong felt that after the battle with the 100-Leaf Qin clan, his old friend's head had been stimulated and he had become somewhat eccentric. However, General Manager Su showed a face full of ruthlessness and experience as he moved forward to say, "Senior Dong, If Iron Holler's information and speculation about Qin Wushuang is reliable, then I suspect that those three Wu brothers are most likely Qin Wushuang in disguise. What? Dong Xiong also showed a face full of astonishment when he heard these words. Apparently, he was also astonished. This news was too unexpected. What evidence do you have? Apparently, Dong Xiong was also interested. This is only my speculation. First of all, if these three were ordinary freelance martial artists, I don't believe that they could have escaped unscathed under such circumstances. They are either spies sent by the Hundred-Leaf Qin clan or that Qin Wushuang. Besides, from the number of people, Qin Wushuang has two spiritual beast partners. I heard that they both have the strength of the Void Martial stage. As long as they are spiritual beasts at the Void Martial stage, they would have the power to refine their forms. Thus, from the number of people, it matches. Besides, a moment ago, I saw those three were in a hurry. Apparently, they were leaving the Orderly Mountain capital city. Currently, the Orderly Mountain capital city is bustling with activity. If they were freelance martial artists, they should have stayed at the Freelance Martial Artists Union to search for opportunities. Why would they leave in a hurry? I have every reason to speculate that they had received news about the bounty and were afraid of exposing their identities. This General Manager Su's eloquent words had caused Dong Xiong's expression to become even more complicated. When General Manager Su stopped, Dong Xiong could not help but say, "After all, you are only speculating. Regardless of how reasonable your speculation is, it is only speculation. It's easy to prove it. They are not far from the city. Let's go after them immediately. With our strength, we can definitely catch up to them. If they're truly freelance martial artists, we could just kill them. If it's really Qin Wushuang, then we can make a fortune." Dong Xiong was obviously somewhat hesitant. He was weighing whether or not this amount of money was worth it for him to personally make a move. "Old Su, if your deduction is reliable, I feel that it would be better to tell this news to Mu Rong Qianji. If that's the case, we'll be able to obtain a bounty of 100,000 without any effort." What Lord Murong wanted was a living person and a clue, and the pay was even higher. Since the heavenly Luo Taoist sect wanted heads, they would offer lesser rewards. It's meaningless for us to do it ourselves. With Dong Xiong's mindset, he felt that it was better to just sit back and wait to collect money. Moreover, even if this clue wasn't accurate, it would be hard for Mu Rong Qianji to blame them. General Manager Su shook his head decisively. "Brother Dong, you've been in the Orderly Mountain capital. Have you never heard of the rumors about that Qin Wushuang?" The reason why Qin Wushuang was so monstrous was because he possessed an extremely powerful weapon. He could kill people above his level. You should know the level of a weapon that could kill people above his level, right? To put it bluntly, in this capital city, you are a local tyrant. Would you lack that 100,000 gold crystal stones? These words caused Dong Xiong to feel a rush of excitement. Dong Xiong had also heard a lot of information about Qin Wushuang. Only, he had never been interested in this matter. Hearing General Manager Su's analysis, of course, he could not help but feel excited. Perhaps, the gold crystal stones would not be a great temptation to him. However, to them, an extraordinary weapon would be a great temptation. This kind of temptation couldn't be compared to the temptation of money. "Old Su, what do you mean?" Dong Xiong asked in a low voice. "Let's do it ourselves." General Manager Su made a slashing motion in the air. His tone was ruthless and his expression was gloomy. His initial refined appearance had now appeared incomparably malevolent. However, Dong Xiong was not a young man who was inexperienced in life. After careful consideration, he had considered all the problems from all sides in an instant. It would not be a problem to do it themselves. The problem was how to do it. After they succeeded, how to divide the spoils of war. At that time, he would not have worked for nothing and would instead lose his life. Although he had a close relationship with Old Su, it was still unknown whether this relationship could withstand the test of a divine weapon. Qin Wushuang could kill people above his level with a bow and arrow. Even if it was not a divine weapon, it must be in existence close to a magical one. If such a weapon fell into their hands, they would be invincible in the transformation void martial realm, and even in the profound void martial realm. Even if they encountered a transcendent void martial realm expert, if they had a divine weapon, they would be able to defend themselves. Brother Dong, do you have any doubts? General Manager Su asked. Old Su, we are as close as brothers. Let's not treat each other like strangers. If those three people are really Qin Wushuang and his group, after we succeed, how will we divide the spoils of war? There is only one weapon. No matter who gets it, the other one will not be happy. Dong Xiong went straight to the point and stated the facts. Brother Dong, I have also considered this problem. But think about it. Even if that bow and arrow is a divine weapon, it is divided into two parts, the bow and the arrow. If we really get it, we can take control of this divine weapon together. One will take control of the bow, and the other will take control of the arrow. In the future, we will work together as brothers again. Regardless of staying in this orderly mountain prefecture or going to other places, we will have enough capital. This distribution method was rather reasonable. Dong Xiong nodded. All right, in this case, if we can truly get a divine weapon, what's there to cherish about my family business? In the future, us two brothers will share this family business and create a new world together. General Manager Su was overjoyed. Great, there is no time to lose. Let's depart now. Hold on, old Su, if those three are really Qin Wushuang and his group, their power should not be underestimated. If we go there recklessly, we must have a plan, or else we will suffer losses. Just as you said, that Qin Wushuang has a great weapon to kill people above his level. General Manager Su nodded. We must guard against this. However, according to the information, the strongest among them is only at the refined void martial stage. They are much weaker than us two brothers. As long as we use our strategy and prevent them from having the chance to use the bow and arrow, everything will be easy. Okay, let's go first and not let them go too far. After the two of them finished their discussion, they casually packed up and quickly set off. On the other hand, Qin Wushuang and his group had left the city and headed north. In a moment, they had arrived at the desolate countryside. The three of them found a secluded place and changed their outfits and attire. Qin Wushuang had a few masks that had been used in the human countries. Now, he picked one randomly and covered his face. Then, he slightly changed the shape of his body. For Bao Bao and Lone, it was not difficult to change their appearance and outfits. In terms of shape refinement, it was completely within their thoughts. After they had finished, the three of them looked at each other happily. Of course, they were not used to it first. Boss, didn't you say that General Manager Su was severely injured? How come he came to the capital city now? It's been a long time since he got injured. This person is extremely malicious and suspicious. We must guard against him. When Qin Wushuang said up to this point, suddenly, his eyelids twitched for no reason. Such twitching of the eyelids usually carried some kind of hint. Currently, Qin Wushuang could not help but feel a slight throbbing in his heart as he was discussing these matters. Boss, what's wrong? Lone asked curiously. Huh? Qin Wushuang gave a sneer. I have a strange feeling that for sure, that General Manager Su will expose our whereabouts. Let him expose us. How could the three of us be scared of him? Initially, we dared to go to his door to deceive him. Now we are not scared of him. Lone did not care. On the contrary, Bao Bao was more cautious. I am just scared that he is a treacherous person and would sell out our information. In case we provoke the heavenly Luo Taoist sect and those powerful freelance martial artists, it would be difficult for us. Even if Lord Mu Rong comes, it will be troublesome for us. Let's not talk about these things. Let's leave quickly. That sense of crisis inside Qin Wushuang's heart had become heavier. After walking a few steps, Qin Wushuang stopped and shook his head. If we walk like this, regardless of how fast we walk, even if we run with all our strength, we would not be faster than the speed of transformation void martial stage martial artist in the air. If we walk too fast, we would appear to be lacking in confidence. Then what should we do? Bao Bao asked. Walk slowly. We will do whatever we need to do. Qin Wushuang's arrogance flared up. With that General Manager Su's treacherous and suspicious personality, If he had guessed my identity, he would not have told anyone. He has an ambition that no one else has. Could it be that he still has the appetite to swallow us all? I am afraid that's what he thinks. As Qin Wushuang spoke, he pulled the He Jimin breaking formation spear in his hand. With a heroic spirit that reached the clouds, he laughed. Regardless of how big his appetite is, if he truly wants to scheme against us, I will never agree. Ha ha! Isn't he just at the transformation void martial stage? Boss, let's fight with him. I believe that with the three of us working together, even if Boss does not use the graceful spiritual bow, we will still be able to deal with an elite warrior at the transformation void martial stage. Not to mention that General Manager Su was injured not long ago. I don't believe that he is fully recovered. While they were talking, Qin Wushuang stood up suddenly. A wave of sharp light kept shooting out from his eyes as he looked at the sky with astonishment. The three of them felt that the surrounding valley had suddenly become much darker. As if a black cloud was pressing down on the village, it had covered the entire sky. Ha ha! Indeed you have changed your appearance. General Manager Su shot down from the sky and dropped before Qin Wushuang. Stop. Qin Wushuang gave a light snort and looked at General Manager Su with vigilance. Ha ha. Don't pretend you don't know, Wu Xing'a. Ha ha. This is a fake name. Don't pretend. If I had not seen you before and you had changed your appearance, I might not have been able to recognize you. But now, the moment your eyes met mine in the city, I used a special pupil attachment technique on your body. No matter how marvelous your transformation is, my eyes can see through you. As soon as these words were spoken, Qin Wushuang was also shocked. Pupil attachment technique. It sounded like a mystery to him. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 462. As soon as Qin Wushuang saw the stance of this General Manager Su, he knew that he would not let go of today's matter. However, he had always had an outstanding mentality. Even when facing an elite warrior at the transformation void martial stage, he was not afraid inwardly. Lights flashed in Bao Bao and Lone's eyes. Apparently, they planned to make a move without a word. General Manager Su, you have good eyes. Qin Wushuang said lightly. Inwardly, he was alert as he muttered to himself. On that day, during the battle at the Duckbeak Mountain, General Manager Su abandoned us freelance martial artists. Unexpectedly, you escaped to the capital city of the Orderly Mountain Prefecture. Could it be that General Manager Su doesn't know that the 100-Leaf Qin clan has already cast an inescapable net to catch you? The fish that escaped the net? A mocking smile emerged from the corner of General Manager Su's mouth. Yet, he said with an indifferent tone, I find it strange that you three brothers have lived until now unscathed. Can you three brothers help me clear up the doubts in my heart? Lone swore, Su, don't be shameless. Get lost if you know what's good for you. In the future, none of us will know each other. If you don't, we will announce your whereabouts to the world. I believe that in less than a month, the hunting team of the 100-Leaf Qin clan will have their eyes on you. When General Manager Su heard these words, he laughed. However, he did not expose them. With a flash of his hand, General Manager Su already held his signature blue and white long sword in his hand. As he held it in his hand, although he did not reveal any murderous intent, Qin Wushuang and the others did not dare to neglect it. Lone roared, I will take the lead. Zhang Xian stepped forward, flicked his sleeves, and threw a punch forward. This punch did not have any fancy moves. However, as soon as he threw out this punch, a wave of distorted fist aura filled the air. As soon as this fist aura swayed with the wind, it dispersed instantly and congealed into many illusory fists to smash at General Manager Su from head to toe. Bao Bao also gave a loud roar and waved the giant stick in his hand to attack from the side. As soon as he threw out this stick, sand and stones flew in all directions. The miserable sound of the wind lingered in the ears. Qin Wushuang didn't stop either. Pointing the Overlord breaching formation spear into the distance, his body quickly dashed forward. Quiet as a virgin, moving like a fleeing rabbit. This was exactly the kind of vigorous and nimble skills that he had. Qin Wushuang's spear strike was completely based on his thoughts. There was simply no superfluous fancy moves. It was the first style of his self-created spear art, awakening. When this spear was used by Qin Wushuang, its might was naturally different. The spear aura rolled out, and the entire Overlord breaking formation spear was like an angry azure dragon, swallowing and spitting. General Manager Su was also stunned. He had made a lot of mental preparations before this and knew that Wu Xinghe and his two brothers were really Qin Wushuang in disguise. Their cultivation must be very strong. However, even so, General Manager Su still did not experience the feeling of superiority in terms of cultivation realm under the simultaneous attacks of the three people. The three well-coordinated attacks pushed him into a dangerous situation in the span of a breath. Bastard. Sure enough, he was hiding his strength. General Manager Su was infuriated. His feet stepped back repeatedly, and he was actually unable to charge forward and face the three attacks head-on. As he retreated, Qin Wushuang's arm suddenly waved. Then, a yellow light flashed like a yellow transparent cloth covering his body. Then, this yellow light rolled and swept away Qin Wushuang and his two brothers. It was as if a large hand had appeared out of thin air and pulled the three of them away from where they stood. General Manager Su stood on his feet, and his eyes flashed with surprise. The blue long sword in his hand was activated, and he slashed down repeatedly. This sword light came one after another, and its sharpness was unparalleled. The entire ground seemed to have been plowed by a bull. It was completely overturned, and it was a mess. In midair, Dong Xiong also rushed down. Old Su, how did they escape? General Manager Su's face was ashen. He stared at the ground around him and cursed. That guy's full of tricks. He must have realized that I brought helpers this time. Therefore, he immediately activated a talisman to escape after only one exchange. This is an Earth escape talisman that goes deep into the Earth vein. It's more advanced than ordinary Earth escape talismans. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to escape so quickly. Dong Xiong's face was a bit ugly. Then what should we do? We can't have come here for nothing, right? Don't worry. This kind of Earth escape technique pursues the depth of the Earth vein, but the distance of escape won't be very far. At most, it will be within a radius of 1,000 miles. Within 1,000 miles? Dong Xiong's spirit was lifted. If it's within 1,000 miles, with the range of our transformation void martial stage's divine sense, it's not impossible to lock onto them. General Manager Su nodded. Don't worry, they won't be able to escape far. General Manager Su used the pupil attachment technique on Qin Wushuang and his brothers. This technique was effective for 3 days. Unless they escaped from the coverage of General Manager Su's spiritual perception in these 3 days, General Manager Su could use this miraculous technique to locate the location of Qin Wushuang's group. Dong Xiong was overjoyed. Then let's hurry. General Manager Su said, don't worry. This technique has many taboos and inconveniences. We must ensure that there are no super strong masters in this area. Otherwise, if my divine sense searches randomly and offends a super strong master, it will bring us unnecessary trouble. Dong Xiong nodded, knowing that General Manager Su's words were reasonable. Okay, then you take it one step at a time. If you encounter a strong divine sense defense layer, then avoid it. Those 3 guys can't have a stronger divine sense than you, right? The talisman Qin Wushuang had used was an escape talisman that used the Earth attribute. This was the strategy that he had decided on when General Manager Su appeared. According to Qin Wushuang's understanding of General Manager Su, General Manager Su's character was comparable to a fox. With his character, if he was alone, it was absolutely impossible for him to come to them. If he was alone and had just recovered from his serious injuries, he would absolutely not dare to come. This was also not in line with his character. If he dared to make a move alone, he would have done it at the entrance of the inn in the capital city. Why we wait until now? This proved that General Manager Su must have come with his accomplices. The reason why he did not come out was because he was hiding in the dark and waiting for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. Of course, Qin Wushuang would not give the other party the opportunity to launch a two-pronged attack. That was why he had used the Earth Escape Talisman to escape, even though he had gained the upper hand. With a dash of yellow light, Qin Wushuang and the other two dropped into the underbrush in a valley. Bao Bao straightened up and looked around. When he raised his head, he saw a tall mountain towering before him. "Boss, where the hell are we?" After Qin Wushuang had entered the Xianyuan mound, he had been studying the map. He already had a good understanding of the terrain of a Xianyuan mound. After a moment of observation, he said, "If I've guessed correctly, this should be the Divine Finger Mountain. Look, don't these 5 continuous mountain peaks look like 5 fingers on a palm?" As Qin Wushuang looked from afar, inwardly, he was also deeply moved by the miraculous nature of this place. "You don't say, it does look like it." Bao Bao also felt extremely amazed when he looked closely. Lone, however, kept his head down. He seemed to be a little unhappy. "Second, what's wrong?" Bao Bao asked curiously. Lone twitched his mouth. "Boss, I say, aren't we being too conservative? Although that Su guy is powerful and at the transformation void martial stage, we were not at a disadvantage a moment ago. Why are we in a rush to leave? If we don't dare to fight with someone stronger than us, how can we improve?" In fact, Bao Bao also had doubts inwardly. Yet, he was smart and did not speak it out. He deliberately discussed the terrain with Qin Wushuang. Now, hearing Lone's words, he immediately shot a glance at him. However, Lone turned his face away and revealed a somewhat depressed and wronged expression. Of course, Qin Wushuang knew that this purple flame electric beast was a battle maniac. Of course, he would feel unhappy when he was forcefully taken away from the battle scene. Second, if you want to fight, there will always be a chance. Qin Wushuang said lightly, "We must fight with this General Manager Su. However, not at that time and not at that place." "Then what time and what place?" Lone could not help but ask. "Perhaps we cannot set the time, but we must set the place," Qin Wushuang said with a determined tone. Seeing Qin Wushuang speaking with such seriousness, Bao Bao knew that the situation was not as simple as they had imagined. He asked curiously, "Boss, just what kind of knowledge is involved in this? You too, use your brains and think. Since this battle is inevitable, why should I waste such precious Earth Evasive Talisman?" "Yes, boss. Luckily you activated the Earth Evasive Talisman. If it was an ordinary talisman, for sure you would not have been able to escape the pursuit of an elite warrior at the transformation void martial stage." Bao Bao said, "I did this to buy time for us and to strive for a more favorable environment for us to unleash our potential," Qin Wushuang said with a cautious tone. With General Manager Su's suspicious personality, for sure he would not dare to chase after us by himself. If I've guessed correctly, he has an accomplice in the middle of the sky, and this accomplice must have shared a life and death relationship with him. His strength is also on par with his. Both Bao Bao and Lone were stunned as their faces were filled with astonishment. Think about it. Under that situation, if we were attacked from left and right by them, with 2 elite warriors at the transformation void martial stage attacking us from the left and right, what are our chances of winning? This. Bao Bao drew a breath of cold air and did not dare to think further. He stammered, "Unless boss is the time to activate the graceful spiritual bow, or else we don't have the slightest hope." At this moment, Lone had to admit this point. "Boss, it seems that General Manager Su is suspicious of your identity." A light flashed across Bao Bao's head as he said at the same time, "This way from now on, we will have endless troubles." Lone was rather optimistic as he laughed dryly. "The more troubles, the better. I want to see how many people who are not afraid of death will come to our door." However, Qin Wushuang shook his head. "Perhaps that General Manager Su has guessed our identity. However, with his selfish personality, most likely he would not share this information with others. Or else, he would have already sold this information to the Floating Snow Master." This Su guy, what does he want to do? Lone swore. I am afraid his target is not the bounty, but us. Qin Wushuang said coldly. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 463. The target is with us. Bao Bao was stunned and immediately understood. Yes, boss. Now, all the freelance martial artists of the Orderly Mountain Prefecture know that you have a powerful Bao. This Su guy seems to have a big appetite. Just when Lone was about to scold him, Qin Wushuang stopped him with a hand gesture. From Qin Wushuang's expression, he did not show any anger or fear. He only showed calmness and calmness. Let's not talk about it. Since General Manager Su came to us, it would be unnecessary to say 1,000 words. With the current situation, we cannot leave. These were not frightening words to scare them. With their speed, they had no chance of winning against a transformation void martial stage martial artist flying in the sky. Now, the problem was that General Manager Su had performed the mysterious pupil attachment technique on them. Even if they changed their appearance, it would be in vain. They could not win in terms of speed. Changing their appearance would not work either. It meant that they only had one choice left for them, and that was to fight. Fight to the death. With a determined expression, Qin Wushuang said, although General Manager Su did not spread the news because of his own selfish motives, to us, it's a good thing. At least, if we can kill General Manager Su, we can avoid a lot of future troubles. Boss, then let's fight with them. So what if they are at the transformation void martial stage? I don't believe that us three brothers cannot beat them. Boss, as long as you use the graceful spiritual bow well, we still have a chance of winning. Now, our only chance of winning is the graceful spiritual bow. Qin Wushuang said in a low voice, second third. For this battle, we must use some strategy. Boss, what strategy? Bao Bao and Lone asked at the same time. Qin Wushuang analyzed. Let's say they already guessed my identity. They must know that I have the graceful spiritual bow. To me, they will be extra vigilant. Thus, for this battle, we must change our strategy. Bao Bao Lone, if you guys use the graceful spiritual bow, do you have the confidence to shoot General Manager Su to death? Bao Bao and Lone looked at each other in dismay. They knew their limits. Even if they were given a weapon that they had never used before, they wouldn't be able to use it as well as their boss. Even though their cultivation bases were slightly higher than Qin Wushuang's, they were still very strong. The two of them knew their own limits at the very least. Bao Bao said with a bitter smile, Boss, you and the graceful spiritual Bao have been working together for many years. Since you kept merging, the graceful spiritual Bao has almost become one with you. If the two of us use the graceful spiritual Bao, its power will definitely not be as powerful as yours, unless the two of us have also entered the profound void realm. Otherwise, even if they were at the transformation void martial stage, their control of the graceful spiritual Bao would not be as skillful as Boss, and the effect would not be as good as when Boss is controlling it. Lone also admitted this point. Boss, the graceful spiritual Bao still needs you to operate. Qin Wushuang sighed and said, Naturally, the effect would be the best if I were to operate it. However, that Chief Steward Su's character is cunning. He won't act until he sees the hair. If I hide and don't appear, he will definitely be on guard against the two of you. It will be impossible for me to take advantage of this opportunity. GMO said helplessly. Then what should we do? Suddenly, Bao had an idea as he said with joy, Boss, I have a plan. Do you think it will work? Tell me. Lone urged him. Bao rolled his eyes and revealed a trace of a proud smile. He said in a low voice, Boss, look, us and Lone can all refine our appearance. Pick one at random, imitate your appearance, and wear your clothes. And you will hide in the corner and launch a sneak attack with a graceful spiritual Bao. Lone slapped his thigh. Good plan. Boss, I think Bao's idea will work. This was a good idea. Qin Wushuang deduced it and found it to be feasible. However, it was not without flaws. This plan is not bad. However, regardless of which of you impersonating me, I will hide in the dark. If one of the three is missing, the other party will get suspicious. Boss, how about you stop hiding in the dark? You should also participate in the battle. Second, and I will fight for some space for you. You will use your fastest speed to launch a sneak attack with a graceful spiritual bow. Qin Wushuang said, "This will work. The opportunity will disappear in a flash. As long as there is a trace of opportunity, I will have the confidence to shoot him to death with the graceful spiritual bow." Okay, let's do it this way. Second, are you going to disguise as boss? Or should I do it? Lone thought for a moment and said, "You should do it. I will be in charge of breaking through the enemy lines. I will create the opportunity for boss. You will support from the side and observe the situation. If that friend of Sue comes together, you will be in charge of restraining him. In a one-on-one fight, even if you cannot beat them at the transformation void martial stage, as long as you are willing to fight with your life on the line, it will not be a problem to hold them back for a while. Okay, boss, I will start to change into your appearance. You will just find a random mask to change into. They're mainly targeting you. As for me and second, we will change our appearance. Even if they are suspicious, they will not think too much." The three of them reached an agreement and dashed towards the direction of the divine finger mountain. In the process of refining one's appearance, all the changes were within a thought. With the original body as a reference, Bao Bao appeared to have an easy time changing his appearance. Unless it was someone who was familiar with Qin Wushuang's temperament, or else, just this appearance would fool everyone. "Boss, what do you think? Do I look like you?" Qin Wushuang looked at him with astonishment for a moment. Before he could speak, Lone laughed. "You look too similar. This appearance can definitely pass off as the real thing." "Okay, now don't call me boss. Now, you're the boss," Qin Wushuang said with a smile. The three of them looked at each other and smiled. They had already found a favorable terrain. The valley between the two peaks of the Divine Finger Mountain was filled with lush forest and abundant vegetation. It was the best place to hide. It was easy to defend and hard to attack if they were to hide in this area. A special meaning flashed across Qin Wushuang's brows. This is the place. Whether we will be destroyed or continue to live, it will depend on this battle. "Su, come. I will wait to break your bones." Lone swore recklessly. General Manager Su and Dong Xiong flew in the sky and explored with their spiritual perception. They did not encounter any obstacles or threats. At this moment, General Manager Su's eyes were flashing with a strange blue light. He was using his pupil technique to search for the source of the attached pupil. This technique was like a light source sensing technique. As long as his pupil light got close to Qin Wushuang and the others who were carriers of the pupil attachment technique, his pupil light would sense them and lock onto their position. "How is it?" Dong Xiong seemed very anxious. It would be too depressing if the duck that was at the mouth flew away. Dong Xiong obviously cannot calm down. "Don't worry. The more anxious you are, the happier they will be." General Manager Su's psychological quality was outstanding. Although they had been searching for half a day, the sky was gradually darkening. If they could not lock onto the position before nightfall, they would have to wait until tomorrow. Because in the dark, it was unfavorable for transformation void martial stage warriors like them who had the advantage in the air. Because in the air, you would become a target and would be easily discovered. As for the targets lying in ambush on the ground, it would be even harder for them to locate them in the dark. The blue light in General Manager Su's eyes suddenly shot out a deep blue light, directly shooting in a direction. General Manager Su was overjoyed. "Northwest direction, go!" The two of them immediately sped up and rushed towards the northwest direction. Isn't that the Divine Finger Mountain? From afar, the two of them saw 5 continuous peaks in the middle of the air. Surrounded by layers upon layers of mountains, they appeared to be superior. They towered in front of them and pierced through the clouds. Could it be those 3 guys are hiding in the Divine Finger Mountain? General Manager Su was in a difficult situation. It would be better if this divine finger mountain was only on the periphery. However, it would be troublesome if they entered the forbidden area of the divine finger mountain. The third summit of the divine finger mountain was not an ordinary place. Over there was a sect that was not weak. And this place had already left the jurisdiction of the Orderly Mountain Prefecture and entered the Judge Mountain Prefecture. This sect of the Divine Finger Mountain happened to be the strongest sect in the Judge Mountain Prefecture. Its position was equivalent to the dark green Cloud Taoist sect of the Orderly Mountain Prefecture. The most fatal part was that this sect had never been on good terms with the dark green Cloud Taoist sect. They were extremely conflicted with the people of the Orderly Mountain Prefecture. Senior Su, before the fortuitous opportunity, you will not shrink back, right? Don't think too much. This primary central sect would not be so easy to talk to, and let them break into the forbidden area. Locate them again. General Manager Su nodded and spread out the light from his eyes. After a little while, General Manager Su revealed an ecstatic expression. Indeed, they are only between the head summit and the second summit. If they did not pass the second summit, the primary central sect would not care. Let's go. Although the two of them said this, they did not dare to act too arrogant when they arrived at the area of the Divine Finger Mountain. They descended from the sky and changed to walking. It was this layer of restraining fear that had destroyed their advantage in the sky. Senior Dong, this time, let's not play with empty words. As long as we see that Qin Wushuang, we will attack with all our strength. We only need to take out Qin Wushuang. It doesn't matter if we kill those two guys or not. Besides, as long as we don't have that suspected divine weapon, why would we care about a mere refined void martial stage? Yes, let's make a move directly and efficiently. We should have done this last time. Dong Xiong also said, Senior Dong, if people of the primary central sect appear, you must not expose your identity, or else it would be troublesome. General Manager Su still had some concerns inwardly. Don't worry, do you think I'm stupid? Besides, although I am a disciple of the dark green Cloud Taoist sect, I have lived in the capital city of the Orderly Mountain Prefecture for a long time. Not many people in the outside world know my identity. This Dong Xiong had another identity. He was a disciple of the dark green Cloud Taoist sect. He came from the same sect as Dong Qian, whom Qintong had invited. They were even from the same bloodline. When the two of them passed the head summit, they became even more cautious. They advanced step by step and advanced stealthily. Apparently, they were unwilling to act rashly and alert the enemy. The light from General Manager Su's eyes also kept flashing. Apparently, the closer the target was to his position, the more intense the reaction from his eyes. He is within 10 miles. General Manager Su did not even dare to speak as he sent his voice through his spiritual sense. At this moment, they did not expect that as soon as they stepped into this area, they were completely detected by Bao Bao, who was hiding underground. To be continued, if you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 464. Although Bao Bao was only a spiritual beast at the refined void martial stage, he did not possess the immemorial bloodline for nothing. Most importantly, he was born with the ability to move underground. Compared to these two, he was much more familiar with the earth attribute. Thus, even General Manager Su and that Dong Xiong could not grasp his movements while moving underground. Boss, as you expected, they did find this place. The strange thing is they did not use their advantage in the air, but approached from the ground. Bao Bao delivered the information immediately. At the same time, he was somewhat confused. Qin Wushuang thought about it and said, Now, the sky is gradually getting dark. Since they're in the air, it would not be effective for them to scout the ground. On the contrary, it would be easier for us to discover them. It's not that they gave up their advantage in the air, but that they did not dare to use it. They were afraid that I would shoot them with the graceful spiritual bow. Haha, that's right. Bao Bao scratched his head and said with a chuckle, It's much easier to deal with them since they came from the ground. Everyone, follow the plan. Qin Wushuang made a hand gesture. Instantly, the three of them transformed into 3 rays of light and shot towards 3 different positions. These 3 positions all had one unique point. They were extremely hidden and were good for observing the surroundings. Using the advantage of the slope, they could observe any enemies that tried to approach from the kernel. Furthermore, the location where the 3 of them were located was not far away from where they were. Once something unexpected happened, it would be easy for them to help each other. Of course, Qin Wushuang spent a lot of time thinking about this distribution. Hey! Lone was the first one to jump out and yelled from afar. Su! I've been waiting for you here for a long time. Why are you not coming up to die? Qin Wushuang always remembered his current identity as Bao Bao. He also changed his voice and laughed dryly. However, he did not speak and only used this strange laugh to prevent the other party from recognizing him. General Manager Su and Dong Xiong exchanged a look. The 2 of them moved almost at the same time. It was as if a pair of wings suddenly grew on their backs. They glided up at a low altitude. The speed of their sprint was actually as fast as lightning. Lone shouted at Bao Bao's position. Boss, are you ready? Once this question was asked, GMO rushed down the mountain, with a huge rock in each hand, fiercely smashing towards General Manager Su and Dong Xiong. Although the stones weighed 1,000 pounds, they were not much of a threat to the 2 void transformation stage powerhouses. Both of them swung their weapons and smashed the rock into smithereens. Although Bao Bao moved swiftly, he did not rush downwards. Instead, he pierced to the side. Almost at the same time, Qin Wushuang wielded a giant stick, which was Bao Bao's usual weapon. He rushed out from the sky and merged with Lone to attack General Manager Su. Brother, you go after them. I'll deal with these 2. General Manager Su called out and waved the blue and white longsword in his hand. He was confident and at ease, and a wave of sword chi whizzed over. The sword light intertwined, and the sky was filled with blue and white mist. When the mist dissipated, it turned into frost and attacked together with the sword chi. However, Lone opposed him with equal harshness. Although he knew that he was inferior to the other party in terms of stage, he still opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of genuine fire towards that murderous sword chi. The fiery light filled the sky like a fiery vermilion bird. It was full of spirituality, and when it collided with the sword chi, half of its power was eliminated. Third, I will deal with this Su guy. You go help boss. Lone deliberately said loudly. His body rolled in the sky, and in the sky, his body kept changing between his human form and his original form. Okay. Qin Wushuang gave a low shout and retreated backwards. Apparently, Lone wanted to attract the attention of this General Manager Su. His body expanded with the wind. The original form of the purple flame electric beast was extremely mighty. Plus, Lone had deliberately changed his original form, which made him appear even more ferocious and terrifying. Roar! Suddenly, the body of the purple flame electric beast turned from purple to red. He clawed at the sky with both of his claws, and the sharp claws created an ear-piercing explosion sound in the air. The power of these 2 claw attacks was the purple flame electric beast's proudest attack. Although it was simple, it contained a powerful metal attribute attack with powerful penetrating power. General Manager Su did not dare to neglect, as he quickly drew 2 circles with the blue and white long sword. After he finished drawing the circles, it instantly formed 2 blue and white protective air shields in front of him. General Manager Su was a cautious person. He knew that spiritual beasts at the Void Martial stage always had astonishing combat power. Even if it was at the refined Void Martial stage, once it went berserk, the combat power displayed was enough to make him, an elite warrior at the Transformation Void Martial stage, feel uncomfortable. Although the difference in stage could not be compensated, it would take some effort to deal with it. Since he had just recovered from his serious injuries, he did not dare to be overly careless. He only used this blue and white water attribute air shield to block this claw attack. Crack! With an explosive sound, under the attack of the claw attack. Half of that blue and white air shield had been penetrated and split open from the middle. This scene also made General Manager Sue sweat profusely. He shuttled between the hundreds of thousands of scales. It was unknown how many layers of defense these hundreds of thousands of scales had set up. They floated up in the sky. The scene looked extremely strange. Even General Manager Sue was dumbstruck by what he saw. He did not expect that this spiritual beast had such a technique, and it looked like it was made to deal with his sword art of 10,000 transformations. While he was hesitating, those scales floated up quickly and kept flowing towards him. General Manager Sue was shocked. He knew that this spiritual beast was trying to get close to him and attack his real body. Immediately, his body flew up into the sky. He tapped his feet and stepped on his blue and white sword. After stepping on it, the sword art did not stop. It continued to create illusory sword chi and attack the scales. These illusory sword chi were not the real body's sword. It could only break open the scales, but could not pierce through them. However, it was useless to break open the scales, because after it was broken open, these scales had a sense of recognition towards the purple flame electric beast's real body. Once it was broken open, it would attach itself to the purple flame electric beast again, as if it had a magnetic attraction. The purple flame electric beast roared loudly. "Sue, come down if you have the guts. What kind of skill is hiding in the sky?" He cursed loudly, but it was of no use. After all, the purple flame electric beast could move in the sky. But to fly in the sky, he, who was at the refined void martial realm, could not do it for now. All of his actions, in General Manager Sue's eyes, were overjoyed. The angrier the purple flame electric beast was, the happier he was. It was because it meant that he had a higher chance of finding the flaw of this spiritual beast. Yet, he had no idea that all of this was Qin Wushuang's strategy. He had let the purple flame electric beast attract General Manager Sue's attention and find the perfect opportunity to shoot. As for the friend brought by General Manager Sue, even if he was at the transformation void martial stage, Qin Wushuang was not worried at all. With Bao Bao's bloodline of the ancient spiritual monkey, plus his monstrous ability to move underground, even a transformation void martial stage martial artist could only be restrained and play hide and seek, unless the other party was also an elite warrior at the transformation void martial stage who excelled in underground activities. With a calm gaze, Qin Wushuang fixed his gaze on General Manager Sue in the sky. It was a familiar action, an action that he had done countless times. Each time, Qin Wushuang was filled with confidence and expectation. It was because once he used the graceful spiritual bow, Qin Wushuang had never been defeated. Never. This time, he also firmly believed that he would not fail. The bow was like a full moon, and the arrow was like a shooting star. It was like a skylark flying obliquely from the underbrush, like a shooting star streaking across the sky, like a fleeting glimpse, like a shooting star in an instant whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, arrows in succession, an unprecedented 3 arrows in a row. 3 arrows were shot at the same time. These 3 arrows had condensed all of Qin Wushuang's anger and all of the effort that Qin Wushuang had poured into the graceful spiritual bow over the years. The power was also unprecedented. After shooting the 3 arrows, Qin Wushuang's mood was surprisingly calm. It was because he had a strong intuition that once these 3 arrows were shot, even the 2 general managers Sue would die for sure. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 465. In the middle of the air, a moment ago, that General Manager Sue was hesitant and full of confidence as he started to think about how to defeat this spiritual beast. In the next moment, 3 beams of green light shot out of thin air, locking down all of his life force. The opponents Qin Wushuang had met before had reacted before the graceful spiritual bow was activated. They did not have the time to evade. This time, General Manager Su's reaction was after the graceful spiritual bow had been activated. How could there be any luck? For these 3 arrows, regardless of the angle or power, they were perfect. At least to Qin Wushuang, who was at the peak of the perfect stage, these are his most successful and most powerful 3 arrows since he had the graceful spiritual bow. The 3 green lights were tyrannical and direct. The powerful flowing lights broke through all the aura surrounding General Manager Su and shattered all his protective aura into pieces. The flowing green lights rushed into General Manager Su's body quickly. In an instant, the green light tore apart General Manager Su's body and tore it into countless pieces that filled the sky. Before he could even let out a miserable cry, General Manager Su, who had been unparalleled in the world a moment ago, was shot into pieces by this tyrannical chain of arrows. And his blue and white longsword that had been emitting dazzling blue and white lights a moment ago instantly lost its color after being hit by the green lights. It fell from the sky and fell to the ground. GMO was overjoyed. He grabbed the blue and white sword and laughed. "Boss, can you give me this sword as a reward?" Qin Wushuang was greatly energized after he had killed General Manager Su. He called out to Lone, "Warn Third, let him come this way." Receiving the order, the purple flame electric beast gave 3 light whistles to the sky. The interval between these 3 whistles was short, and it was the signal to call for his friend. Currently, Bao Bao was playing hide and seek with that Dong Xiong. Hearing the warning from the purple flame electric beast, he was overjoyed inwardly. He knew that Qin Wushuang had succeeded. With a roaring laugh, he crawled out from the deep ley lines and made a face at Dong Xiong. "If you have the guts, come after me." Dong Xiong was not a fool. Although he did not see the specific situation of the battle just now, he felt a powerful aura erupt. Then, he tried to communicate with his divine sense, but he could not sense the aura of his companions. Dong Xiong's whole body was covered in cold sweat. He had a vague feeling that the situation was not good. After chasing Bao Bao for such a long time, he already felt somewhat uneasy. The sudden disappearance of his companion's aura made everything seem even stranger. At this time, when he heard Bao Bao's tone of luring him to chase after him, how could he chase after him? His body swayed in the air, and his sword aura soared into the sky. He then turned around and flew away. Looks like these 3 fellows are really Qin Wushuang's group. Before Dong Xiong could fly far, a sharp whistle came from the divine finger mountain. Then, 3 figures with unparalleled speed appeared in front of him and blocked him in midair. "Flying in the air of my divine finger mountain? Stay! Get down!" 3 sword lights rushed towards Dong Xiong. These sword lights were not a joke. Each of them was filled with tyrannical, murderous intent and did not allow him to hesitate. Although Dong Xiong was an elite warrior at the Transformation Void Martial stage, he did not dare to act rashly in the territory of the primary central sect. He did not have the courage to fight against 3 people at the same time. He lowered his body and dropped to the ground. Initially, these 3 people had planned to force him down with their swords. When they saw Dong Xiong's body drop, they also dropped down after him. At this moment, Bao Bao had already met up with Qin Wushuang. When they saw Dong Xiong being forced down by 3 waves of sword chi, they knew that more people had appeared out of nowhere. They nodded at each other and ran outside. "Don't go." From the forest ahead, a boomerang-like weapon spiraled out. In a flash, it blocked the path of Qin Wushuang. Next, a dozen figures also jumped out from the forest. Each of them were dressed in the same attire. Apparently, they were from the same sect. At this time, Dong Xiong was also forced down by those 3 elite warriors. He also dropped to the grassland on the side. At this time, the 3 groups of people all had different standpoints. Instantly, the situation appeared extremely strange. Inwardly, Dong Xiong kept whispering. He was even more nervous than Qin Wushuang. It was because he knew clearly that as a martial artist of the dark green Cloud Taoist sect, he would not have a good time if he was stopped by people of the primary central sect near the Divine Finger Mountain. Fortunately, he was only dressed in ordinary attire and was not wearing the attire of the dark green cloud Taoist sect. Or else, most likely he would have been attacked from all sides. Now, he could only hope that these people of the primary central sect did not recognize him, and he could get away with it. For the primary central sect, the leader was the one who had used the boomerang to stop Qin Wuxuan. He appeared to be in his 30s and appeared to be extremely astute with a pair of sharp eyes. This person was an elder of the primary central sect named Han Qing. Before this Han Qing had spoken, the expression of his two subordinates changed slightly when they saw Dong Xiong. They whispered a few words next to Han Qing's ear. As soon as Dong Xiong saw this situation, he knew that trouble had come. Since Dong Xiong lived in the Orderly Mountain Prefecture, many people did not know that he was a disciple of the Dark Green Cloud Taoist sect. However, the primary central sect and the Dark Green Cloud Taoist sect had never dealt with each other. Being hostile powerhouses, they were adept at digging into each other's roots. Therefore, it was not strange for Dong Xiong to be recognized by the primary central sect. After Han Qing had finished listening to his subordinates, he laughed with interest. He sized Dong Xiong up with a strange look and said with a smile, "Truly strange, very strange." Dong Xiong braced himself and walked forward. "Friend, please listen to me." Han Qing sneered. "People of the Dark Green Cloud Taoist sect are calling people of the primary central sect your friends? Don't you find this form of address amusing?" Dong Xiong's expression turned pale as he took a few steps back. Suddenly, a strange light flashed across his eyes as he cried out, "Mister, today, I did come somewhat recklessly. However, I did not trespass into the forbidden area of the primary central sect, right? Currently, the 5 mountain peaks of the Divine Finger Mountain are all forbidden areas of the primary central sect," Han Qing said confidently. When one was under the eaves, how could one not lower one's head? Dong Xiong knew that today, at the territory of the primary central sect, he did not have the final say. He could only think of a way to leave. "Okay, it's my fault. But, okay, it's good that you admit that you're not sensible. After taking you down, we will go to the Dark Green Cloud Taoist sect to ask your honored Tao warrior for his lack of discipline." Han Qing waved his hand, and the 3 elite warriors of the primary central sect that followed behind Dong Xiong surrounded him. Dong Xiong did not dare to resist as he raised both of his hands and cried out, "Mister, how about listening to me?" Seeing that he wanted to speak a few times, Han Qing made a hand gesture with a cold sneer. He stared at Dong Xiong. "If you want to speak, first explain your background." Dong Xiong knew his own situation and could not refuse as he said, "My name is Dong Xiong, and I am indeed someone of the Dark Green Cloud Taoist sect. However, I have not come here today to provoke the primary central sect, nor do I intend to become enemies with the primary central sect. Mister, for today's matter, I was also urged to come here by a friend. Now that I have fallen into this situation, I only wish to escape unscathed. I will tell you a great secret." Han Qing raised his head and laughed. Yet, his tone was full of disdain. "A great secret? Even if you have a great secret, I will take you down first. As long as you fall into the hands of the primary central sect, even if it is a great secret, I am not afraid that you will not speak." Han Qing's tone was cold and apparently, there was no room for negotiation. Inwardly, Dong Xiong complained incessantly as his expression kept changing. He said viciously, "Mister, don't push me too far. I would rather be killed than humiliated. Don't even think about taking me back to humiliate me. Don't even think about it." Han Qing laughed coldly and shouted, "That's what I thought. Take him down." As soon as the words "take him down" left his mouth, the 3 people next to Dong Xiong immediately surrounded him in a triangle formation. 3 streaks of sword light came at Dong Xiong from different directions. Each of these 3 sword lights had their own characteristics. Clearly, they were not ordinary people. Just by seeing how they were able to ride in the air, he knew that these 3 were elite warriors at the Transformation Void Martial stage. And these 3 elite warriors at the Transformation Void Martial stage listened to someone else. It was apparent that the person who had spoken to him before was even more powerful. As soon as he thought of this, Dong Xiong's heart was filled with fear. However, fear was fear. At this time, since there was no way out, he could only fight to the death. Fight to the death and fight to survive. Fight to the death with the method of fighting to the death. At the same time that Dong Xiong was complaining incessantly in his heart, he also made up his mind to die. Grabbing with his palm, a red flame burned from his palm. Pushing with both hands, this flame instantly burned and spread out towards the surroundings. This fire was like a raging, ferocious beast that was spewing out from the ground. Almost at the same time, Dong Xiong's body also rushed out and the large saber in his hand swept horizontally. The murderous saber light was like the momentum of the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves as it cut towards the waist of the person in the south. This saber strike was not a life or death struggle, but it was more like a life or death struggle. Almost at this moment, Han Qing lightly raised his arm. An invisible force urged the boomerang in his hand. With a whoosh like a shooting star catching up with the moon, it directly wrapped around the edge of the saber. Clank! The crisp sound of metal colliding caused Dong Xiong to feel a burst of dryness in his mouth and tongue. The other party's boomerang seemed to be tied by an invisible rope and was a soft weapon. However, when such a soft weapon clashed with his murderous saber, it made the web between his thumb and index finger feel numb. When an expert made a move, one would know whether they were skilled or not. Especially in a battle between elite warriors, the difference between one level higher and one level lower was real. Dong Xiong's momentary shock had brought about a chain reaction that would consign him to eternal damnation. The instant when Dong Xiong's weapon was entangled, Qin Wushuang and the other two rushed out under the lead of Bao Bao's earth elemental technique. This was their only chance. On the side of the primary central sect, only Han Qing and those three elite warriors at the transformation void martial stage had the power to stop Qin Wushuang. However, at this instant, all of their attention was placed on Dong Xiong. Only this momentary opportunity had allowed Qin Wushuang and the others to rush out a few dozen miles. At this moment, of course, Qin Wushuang would not be stingy with his equipment as he activated another spiritual talisman. This spiritual talisman was not the Earth Elemental Talisman, but an ordinary Earth Elemental Talisman. Combined with Bao Bao's Earth Elemental technique, this spiritual talisman had the effect of increasing the spiritual qi. For a time, their speed had been raised to the extreme. The sprint of these three people was extraordinarily smooth. After traveling for thousands of miles, they finally came out from the ground and changed back to their initial appearance when they had entered the Xian Yuan Mound. Now that General Manager Su was dead, of course, they were not afraid of the eye possession technique. However, the people of the primary central sect did not know about their disguise. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.chijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 466. To the Xian Yuan Mound, 1,000 miles of distance was only a short distance. However, with this 1,000 miles of distance, many variables could exist. After all, within the 1,000 miles, there were many escape routes. Even if the other party wanted to chase them, they would not be able to chase in their direction accurately. Most importantly, the primary central sect was not the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. Even if they knew the identity of Qin Wushuang, they would not chase after them regardless of the cost. Not to mention, the primary central sect might not have learned their identity from Dong Xiong. This is strange. How come trouble keeps coming one after another? Bao Bao panted with exhaustion. This is exciting. Lone was rather straightforward. Ha ha. Whenever I think about how Boss shot that Su guy to death, it's so satisfying. Apparently, Lone was still reminiscing about that battle. That Dong Xiong and that Su guy are on the same side. Now, he will suffer. Haha, it seems that the dark green cloud Taoist sect and the primary central sect are not on good terms. If it weren't for the conflict between them, it would have been troublesome for us to escape today. I am afraid that leader of the primary central sect is not much weaker than that Chen Sr., Bao Bao also felt deeply moved when he thought about Elder Han Qing of the primary central sect. He must admit that if that Dong Xiong had not taken the blame, it would have been extremely troublesome for them to escape from the primary central sect. At the Divine Finger Mountain, Han Qing restrained Dong Xiong with one move. Just when he was about to make a vicious move, he realized that Qin Wushuang had escaped. His expression changed, and he glared at his subordinates. Apparently, he was somewhat dissatisfied. With so many people present, they had let them escape. Seeing this opportunity, Dong Xiong cried out, "Mister, I already said that I have important information to share. Now that those 3 guys have escaped, it's the same as a great fortuitous opportunity running away." Humph! Inwardly, Han Qing also felt somewhat regretful. Of course, he would not admit it. He waved his hand. "Take this guy back to the primary central sect." Dong Xiong immediately said, "Mister, why are you so stubborn? It's not too late to let me go. If those 3 guys had escaped, I promise that you will regret it for the rest of your life." Han Qing gestured for the people escorting Dong Xiong to stop. Some blush emerged on Dong Xiong's pale face. Apparently, he knew that the other party was truly moved this time. At the moment, he struck while the iron was hot and said, "Mister, I swear in the name of the dark green cloud Taoist sect, if I speak half a word of lies, may the heavens strike me down." Han Qing frowned and said, "What kind of secret is it? Tell me. If you really are valuable, it won't be difficult for me to let you go." However, Dong Xiong shook his head. His attitude was very firm. "If I say it, it's equivalent to cutting off my own path of survival. You know this better than I do. Your Excellency, if you really are sincere, you should propose a solution that both sides can accept. As long as I ensure your safety, you will be able to obtain this confidential information." Han Qing rolled his eyes. "Then tell me, what kind of solution can you accept?" Dong Xiong thought for a moment and said, "It's simple. As long as we return to the orderly mountain capital city, I will tell you this news. As for whether you can get it or not, that will depend on your own abilities." Han Qing vetoed, "That's impossible. When we are at your orderly mountain prefecture territory, it would be strange if you were willing to cooperate." "Then what do you suggest?" Han Qing said, "At most, we can only send you to the city gate of the orderly mountain prefecture capital city. If you are still worried, you can inform your fellow disciples to pick you up." Dong Xiong thought for a moment. "All right, I will take a step back." However, Han Qing's subordinate advised him, "Elder Han, I am afraid this guy wants to escape death and deliberately said these words to confuse us. You must not believe him so easily." Of course, Han Qing had his own reasons. Initially, he also felt that Dong Xiong had such motives. However, when Qin Wushuang and his group took the opportunity to escape, it gave him other ideas. Think about it. If those 3 did not have a guilty conscience, why would they disregard their lives to escape? Thus, he believed 70% of Dong Xiong's words. With 70% certainty, he was willing to take the risk. Aja, go to the orderly mountain prefecture first. Inform his family to pick him up outside the city gate. Remember, you must control the time and be one step ahead of us. We must not give them too much time to ask the local tyrant of the dark green cloud Taoist sect to deal with us." One of the subordinates accepted the order. "Yes, Elder Han." Initially, Dong Xiong had some devious thoughts as he wanted to use this method to attract his fellow disciples to rescue him. Hearing Han Qing's words, he knew that his wishful thinking would not work. Inwardly, he could not help but feel somewhat frustrated. However, seeing Han Qing's arrangement, he did show some sincerity in making a deal. At the moment, he said, "Of course you cannot go to my house. I will give you a token. You only need to go to the old soup pawn shop on Oak Street of the orderly mountain capital city and give a token to anyone in the pawn shop to explain the situation." Dong Xiong was not someone to be trifled with. Of course, he must be on guard against people of the primary central sect. Both parties were not easy to deal with. No one could gain any advantage. On the contrary, it would facilitate this deal. Indeed, everything was going smoothly. When Dong Xiong and his group arrived outside the orderly mountain capital city, Azhua had also arrived with his people. Although Dong Xiong was frustrated, he was calm. He had nothing to feel ashamed about losing before so many elite warriors of the primary central sect. Ahead is the orderly mountain capital city, right? Han Qing asked lightly. Although his tone was calm, it carried a different kind of majesty. Whether you live or die, it's all up to you. If you play tricks on me now or give me false information, I can still take your life at this moment. Even if your dark green cloud Taoist sect wants to take revenge, it will be in the future. Facing such threat, Dong Xiong was extremely calm. Sweeping away his previous dejected state, he smiled lightly and did not evade his gaze. He looked at Han Qing and said, "Since I have made an oath, of course I will not deceive you with lies. Of those 3 people that escaped, one of them is Qin Wushuang from the human countries. Elder Han should not be unfamiliar with this name, right? Qin Wushuang?" Instantly, a stunned expression appeared on Han Qing's face. Then, a trace of regret flashed across his face. "Are you speaking the truth? If I am lying, let me die with 10,000 arrows piercing through my heart." At this moment, Dong Xiong had nothing to hide. Han Qing's expression was uncertain. Inwardly, he was filled with endless regret. Qin Wushuang, Qin Wushuang. The bounty issued by the heavenly Luo Taoist sect had caused an uproar. Not only had the orderly mountain prefecture become lively, the news had also spread to every corner of the neighboring Judge Mountain prefecture. The strongest sect of the Judge Mountain prefecture was the primary central sect of the Divine Finger Mountain. This primary central sect possessed a powerful intelligence network. After they had learned about Qin Wushuang, they immediately knew the value of Qin Wushuang. Naturally, their target had locked on a Qin Wushuang's graceful spiritual bow. After all, to the sects between the 3rd and 2nd rate in the Xian Yuan Mound, the temptation of a legendary divine weapon was fatal. Once the rumor turned out to be true, and it was truly a divine weapon, the sect that had acquired this divine weapon could almost become a carp leaping over the Dragon Gate. Not to mention becoming a first-rate sect, they could definitely look down on any second-rate sect. For your information, even those second-rate sects would not dare to claim to possess a divine weapon. To a large extent, the reason why the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates could occupy the position of the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates and not be replaced by others was because they possessed a divine weapon and elite warriors that could unleash the power of the divine weapon. Of course, besides the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates, there were a few other powerful powerhouses in the Xian Yuan Mound. It was not to say that besides the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates, the other powerhouses would not have a divine weapon. However, with a divine weapon, one would not necessarily be able to enter the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates. However, at least with a divine weapon, it meant that one would have the opportunity to strive for the throne of the Heavenly Emperor Mountain. To any sect in the Xian Yuan Mound, this was a great temptation. For your information, by entering the Heavenly Emperor 8 Gates, it meant one would be qualified to compete for the Heavenly Emperor's seat. Once they had acquired the seat, this sect would shake the world and rule the Xian Yuan Mound. Indeed, they would be second only to one and above tens of thousands. Since the higher-ups of the primary central sect had given the order, being the elder of the primary central sect, Han Qing was also one of the higher-ups. Naturally, he knew what this Qin Wushuang meant. However, Han Qing never thought that because of his carelessness and mistake, Qin Wushuang had slipped away from under their eyes. When he thought here, Han Qing's voice became even colder. Qin Wushuang. How do you know he is Qin Wushuang? It's a long story. If you want to talk about it, I will have to start from my friend. Dong Xiong did not hide the truth and explained in full detail how General Manager Su had found him and how he had participated in the battle to besiege the 100 Leaf Qin clan. Han Qing's face turned purple as he listened. Apparently, after hearing these words, he was even more convinced that Dong Xiong was speaking the truth. At the moment, how could the word regret describe his current mood? Elder Han, I have said everything I need to say, Dong Xiong reminded him. Han Qing gave a long sigh and waved his hand. Let him go. Finally, those 3 elite warriors that had escorted Dong Xiong had loosened their bindings. Han Qing waved his hand. "Let's go." Dong Xiong let out a long sigh of relief as his forehead was full of sweat. Thank the heavens, at least he managed to get his life back. "It's all right, you guys can go back." Dong Xiong waved his hand and ignored those people that had come to pick him up. Alone, he dashed towards the city. He also knew that since Qin Wushuang and his friends had left the Orderly Mountain Prefecture, his hope of chasing after Qin Wushuang had been completely shattered. At this moment, he only had one thought, and that was to turn this information into a vested interest. When he thought here, Dong Xiong sped up his footsteps. This time, his target was the mansion of the city lord. Currently, CS Sankai was talking with Mu Rong Qianji inside the mansion. When he heard that Dong Xiong had come to visit, he waved his hand impatiently. No, this guy is not tactful. Naturally, this comment meant that although Dong Xiong was a disciple of the Dark Green Cloud Taoist sect, his status was far inferior to CS Sansai's. He was not qualified to see him alone. However, that subordinate said, "That guy with the surname Dong said that he has important news to tell Lord Mu Rong. He said that you will regret not seeing him." Inwardly, Mu Rong Qianji was shocked as he said with a smile, "Lord, why don't you let him come in and speak?" To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chidian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 467. Since Mu Rong Qianji had spoken, of course, CS Sankai would not say half a word of no. He smiled apologetically, then let him come in and say a few words. However, this person is extremely cunning, and we must guard against him. Mu Rong Qianji did not speak, and only smiled lightly. What kind of joke was this? With Mu Rong Qianji's eyesight, ordinary people would not have the courage to lie with their eyes open. In a moment, Dong Xiong was brought in by the palace lord. This Dong Xiong was a clever person. Although he was not as suspicious as General Manager Su, he was more calculative and scheming than General Manager Su. He bowed respectfully and stood to the side obediently. He was not in a rush to speak. He knew that this was the mansion of the palace lord. Since the palace lord had not spoken, it was not his turn to speak. CS Sankai sized Dong Xiong up with a scrutinizing gaze. "Butler Dong of the Dark Green Cloud Taoist sect, right?" Dong Xiong smiled apologetically. "That's me. It's rare that the palace lord has heard of my name." CS Sankai was the palace lord. Regardless of personal strength or position, he was not inferior to the honored Taoist of the Dark Green Cloud Taoist sect. Before Dong Xiong, of course, he was qualified to put on airs. Dong Xiong was also well aware of this point. Thus, his tone was extremely respectful. CS Sankai did not answer and drank a mouthful of tea. Then, he said in a neither fast nor slow manner, "Do you have any urgent matters to report to my mansion?" Inwardly, CS Sankai was somewhat annoyed by this Dong Xiong. After all, Dong Xiong had said that he would regret not seeing him. This made CS Sankai feel that he had lost face before Mu Rong Qianji. Hearing CS Sansai's question, Dong Xiong said with a smile, "I heard that the honorable guest at your mansion had issued a bounty mission. Recently, I heard some rumors. I am here to report." When CS Sankai heard these words, he could not help but look at Mu Rong Qianji. Mu Rong Qianji frowned lightly. "What news, please speak?" Dong Xiong immediately said, "Recently, I received information that Qin Wushuang and his 2 subordinates had disguised themselves as 3 brothers to wander the Xianyuan Mount. They had used the name Wu Xinghe. This person had also participated in the battle with the 100-Leaf Qin clan. Together with the Qin clan, they had destroyed the group of freelance martial artists that had invaded. This person appeared in the Orderly Mountain capital 2 days ago." Wu Xinghe. Mu Rong Qianji chewed on this name. "Yes, 2 nights ago, it's highly possible that he was at the Freelance Martial Artists Union and heard everyone discussing the assassination order from the Heavenly Luo Taoist sect." CS Sankai laughed. "Dong Xiong, do you have any basis for your words?" "To tell you the truth, Lord Manorhead, this information came from a friend of mine. He participated in Chun Sen's battle. Moreover, he was the one who invited me to hunt down these three people. At first, I thought he was only hunting down his enemies. However, he did not expect that the person he was chasing was actually Qin Wushuang. This Qin Wushuang had used the alias of Wu Xinghe to infiltrate his team. Unfortunately, my friend was killed. He only told me this shocking news on his deathbed. As soon as I heard the news, I rushed here immediately. This way, you were quite sensible. It was unknown whether Xie Sankai was praising him or mocking him. However, Dong Xiong showed an extremely terrified expression as he lowered his body and answered, "You are overpraising me. I only feel..." Naturally, Mu Rong Qinji was not in the mood to listen to him expressing his loyalty as he asked, "Then where is this Wu Xinghe now?" "He is heading north. I guess his route should be to the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan." A complicated expression emerged from Mu Rong Qinji's eyes. After a moment, he nodded, "Okay." He turned around and said to Xie Sankai, "Man or head, I will leave 100,000 gold crystal stones in your hands. If the information is true, I will write a letter to inform you. By that time, please give this reward to this person." Xie Sankai laughed. "How could I need you to give me the money? This Xie will naturally pay for it on behalf of Lord Morong. Please don't decline. I have troubled you during this time. If I have time in the future, I will come again to express my gratitude. If you have time, you are also welcome to visit the floating snow house." Mu Rong Qinji's courteous words made Xie Sankai feel extremely comfortable. Of course. If I can visit the floating snow house in my lifetime, I would not have wasted my time in this world. At this moment, before Qin Wushuang's group of three, there was an endless mountain range. When Qin Wushuang looked at the map, he knew that besides the Divine Finger Mountain, this was the most majestic crest mountain of the Judge Mountain. Since the terrain of this crest mountain was not as good as the Divine Finger Mountain, it was not occupied by sections. Because of this crest mountain was a famous place for freelance martial artists of the Judge Mountain Prefecture. This crest mountain also contained all kinds of beautiful legends. Historically, the different legends of the crest mountain almost carried the color of myths. With these beautiful legends, a sect should have established itself at this crest mountain. However, the only imperfection was that this crest mountain was a volcano and an active one. It would often erupt. To martial artists, the eruption of a volcano would not threaten their lives. However, to a sect, it was not reliable to establish a foundation at such a place. It could be destroyed at any time. Thus, this crest mountain was an undeveloped pure land. Third, this crest mountain is about 10,000 miles away from the Divine Finger Mountain. I plan to rest here for a while. Bao Bao was a thoughtful person as he revealed a surprised expression. "Boss, are you going to break through?" Qin Wushuang nodded. After the battle with that general manager Su, I felt that I had triggered some mysterious heavenly secrets. The signal from my body is becoming more obvious. For this breakthrough, the signal from my body is extremely active and obvious. It's completely different than before. Bao Bao and Lone were overjoyed. Since they had experienced such changes, of course, they knew that this was the sign of the spiritual martial force advancing to the void martial force. This type of advancement was not a climb within the same stage, but a breakthrough across the stage. This advancement was equivalent to a complete increase in the stage and a complete transformation. Thus, it was reasonable for their body to react violently. "Boss, congratulations. This way, you're truly entering the ranks of the Void Martial Force." This is great news. In the future, all three of us will be at the refined Void Martial stage. Even if we encounter a profound Void Martial stage, with your equipment and talent, you should be able to fight them, right? Third brother, we have to hurry up. Don't drag boss down. The purple flame electric beast was also abnormally excited as he said to Bao Bao. Bao Bao was radiant with joy. "Yes, boss. When you enter the refined Void Martial stage, second and I combined might not be able to beat you." Lone chuckled. "Are you stupid? Why would boss beat us for no reason? Currently, Qin Wushuang was feeling extremely calm inwardly. Ever since he had stepped onto the path of martial arts, he had come this far. Of course, the biggest surprise was when he had suddenly discovered that he had entered the upper sky spiritual martial force. After that surprise, each time Qin Wushuang made a breakthrough, he became more calm and collected than the previous one. Currently, although he was advancing across the stage, he had controlled his mood well. Without a doubt, he would be invincible at the void martial stage if placed in the human countries. However, he had already entered the giant stage of the Xian Yuan Mount. To him, entering the void martial stage was only the beginning. The challenges he would face in the future would not be something a refined void martial stage martial artist could handle. What he needed to do was not to be arrogant, but to walk forward step by step. While they were talking, suddenly, Lone remembered something and took out an object from his bosom. Indeed, it was a storage ring. "Boss, I almost forgot. This dropped from that general manager Sue's body after you killed him. It's a storage ring." Bao Bao's eyes turned green as he urged, "Open it and see." In the end, this general manager, Sue, was only a freelance martial artist. Only, he was a relatively strong freelance martial artist. Inside this storage ring, it was not as abundant as Qin Wushuang had imagined. Besides crystal stones, there were 4 spiritual talismans and a secret book. This secret book had 3 words written on it: pupil attachment technique. Holding it in his hand, Qin Wushuang could not help but feel an itch in his heart as he flipped open this secret book. After flipping a few pages, Qin Wushuang was amazed. He was an expert in martial arts. Of course, he could see that this pupil attachment technique was not a bluff. It truly existed. The basic principle of this technique was to train both eyes and use the natural attributes of the light to form a form of mystical focus. From there, it would leave an invisible mark on the enemy's body. This was all the profoundness of the entire pupil attachment technique. The minimum requirement to train the pupil attachment technique was to be at the void martial stage. Only at the void martial stage could one transform the pupil technique into nothingness and merge with the void to leave an invisible mark on the enemy's body. In other words, at the spiritual martial force, even if one was at the perfect stage, they were not qualified to train this pupil attachment technique. "Boss, for this I want to train." Bao Bao was the first one to shout. Lone did not dare to fall behind. "I also want to share," Qin Wushuang said with a smile. "Everyone gets a share. It's not a bad thing to have one more skill." Bao Bao laughed. "That's right, boss. Let's train at this crest mountain for a while. You should try to break through as soon as possible. The 2 of us will protect you and train this pupil attachment technique at the same time. How about it?" "I was planning to do that," Qin Wushuang said with a smile. "For this storage ring, which one of you 2 wants it?" Bao Bao said obediently. "Of course, we will distribute it according to the order. This time we'll go to second. Next time, it will go to me. How about it?" Hearing his words, Lone felt embarrassed. "Third, are you going easy on me?" Qin Wushuang said with a smile. "Then let's distribute it this way." In terms of scale, this crest mountain was almost on par with the Divine Finger Mountain. In terms of depth, it was even more profound than the Divine Finger Mountain. Although Qin Wushuang and his friends had extraordinary skills, they would not dare to neglect at this crest mountain. They explored step by step and made sure there were no hidden threats. Then, they chose an extremely secluded place to be Qin Wushuang's place for solitary training. However, this time, Qin Wushuang did not plan to seek a breakthrough through solitary training. During this time, as Qin Wushuang traveled thousands of miles, he had been thinking about the stages of his training. Unconsciously, during this journey, Qin Wushuang could feel that his stage kept increasing. It was almost a process where success was achieved when the conditions were right and the cup was full. This time, not only was Qin Wushuang going to achieve a breakthrough in his stage, he also planned to achieve a major breakthrough in his knowledge of martial arts. Today's third update is over. Let's promote the group. VIP2 Group Star Luo 128618757 requires full subscription verification to enter the group. VIP 3 Group Xian Yuan 1280639993 can be added to Qidian VIP users. Normal user 4 Group 1324244122 can be added to anyone who supports Xinghe. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please go to www.qidian.com. More chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 468. Just as Qin Wushuang and his group were training at the Crest Mountain, a man in black entered one of the courtyards of the heavenly Luo Daoist sect at a fast speed. He stopped before a small bamboo forest and blew 3 whistles that sounded as crisp as the chirping of an oriole. In a moment, a wave of footsteps emerged from the bamboo forest as a young man walked out. This person had a handsome appearance. Only his nose was high and his eye sockets were deep. Between his moving eyes, it gave people a sharp feeling. Black Panther, is there any latest news? This young man asked lightly. Young master, there's a lot of news from the Orderly Mountain Prefecture. Apparently, this man in black was this young man's trusted subordinate. I hope to hear the information I need. Young master, at least 3 things you're concerned about. Black Panther bowed and said, tell me one at a time. Be careful, don't leave anything out. Black Panther nodded and also started to move. He followed behind that young man and walked into the bamboo forest. This bamboo forest appeared simple. In fact, it concealed a formation and contained other mysteries. Speak. Even if you shout at the top of your lungs, no one from the outside will hear the conversation inside this bamboo forest. This young man said lightly, Young master, the first matter is related to that Qin Wushuang. Black Panther said with a solemn expression. While he spoke, he observed the reaction of that young man with his eyes. Indeed, when he heard the 3 words Qin Wushuang, a strange color shot out from the deep eyes of this young man. He nodded lightly. What about that Qin Wushuang? According to the information, he has already infiltrated the Xian Yuan Mount. And according to the rumors, this person is most likely related to the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. Heavenly Emperor Qin clan? Apparently, that young man was stunned. Have you ever heard that the Heavenly Emperor Mountain has a branch in the human countries? I have never heard of it. However, the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan has occupied the Heavenly Emperor Mountain for thousands of years. They have tens of thousands of disciples. It would not be unreasonable to say that they have a branch in the human countries. That young man nodded and asked again after a moment of silence. That Qin Wushuang has entered the Xian Yuan Mound? Is this information reliable? It should be very reliable. The person who spread this news was a freelance martial artist of the Orderly Mountain Prefecture who specialized in selling information. And the person who interrogated him was Mu Rong Qianji. Under the pressure of the Floating Snow House's house master, the rogue cultivator didn't dare to lie, nor did he have the ability to do so. He said that he had obtained the information from the Red Maple Human Clan at the Dispersed Praying Mountain. Before Qin Wushuang had entered the Xian Yuan Mound, his last activity was at the Dispersed Praying Mountain. And the activity he had engaged in was to deal with the Red Maple Human Clan. Therefore, this information is highly reliable. Isn't it perfect to enter the Xian Yuan Mound? The smile on the young man's face was somewhat wanton as he said in a gloomy tone, Did anyone take up the level 2 kill order? Young master, since ancient times, there have been many rogue cultivators who have sold their lives for money. Once the level 2 kill order was issued, it naturally attracted a lot of followers. But the problem was that these rogue cultivators were very blind. So far, there was no news about Qin Wushuang at all. In my opinion, those rogue cultivators may not be able to solve the problem. With a solemn expression, the young man nodded lightly, as if he was thinking deeply about something. After a while, he asked again, Then what about the second matter? I already mentioned the second matter earlier. Mu Rong Qianji of the Floating Snow House has already arrived at the Orderly Mountain Prefecture. I can see that this Mu Rong Qianji is indeed searching for his precious daughter. Mu Rong Qianji, that young man mulled over this name. He is putting on a show for us. Young master, It's not something new that Mu Rong Qianji has arrived at the Orderly Mountain Prefecture. What's new is that he has also issued a 100,000 bounty to search for clues related to Qin Wushuang. Black Panther's words made this young man twist his brow instantly. He took a deep breath and asked seriously, "He also issued a bounty and a 100,000? Yes. However, this Murong Qianji has issued a bounty for clues. He also claimed that he wants to see a living person and not a dead one. Young master, with this ruckus from Murong Qianji, it will make our kill order useless. Is this old man Murong expressing his stance to us, or is he restraining us in secret?" The expression on that young man's face kept changing as he could not make up his mind. Murong Qianji had always acted strangely and unexpectedly. It was impossible for one to guess his motives. However, regardless of Murong Qianji's motives, as soon as he issued the bounty, indeed, it had made the bounty of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect become useless. Everyone knew that the bounty for the second-level bounty of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect was only 80,000 gold crystal stones. To acquire these 80,000 gold crystal stones, they must come with Qin Wushuang's head. In comparison, if they had truly grasped the clues of Qin Wushuang, rather than fighting with Qin Wushuang to redeem the 80,000 bounty, how could it be as easy as taking this clue to Mu Rong Qianji to redeem the 100,000 bounty? For this account, even an idiot would calculate it, not to mention those astute martial artists. Young master, although that third matter is not related to Qin Wushuang, it is related to the Heavenly Emperor Qin clan. It's about that 100-leaf Qin clan. Instantly, this Black Panther narrated the recent events of the 100-leaf Qin clan in full detail. Naturally, the young master he spoke of was Luo Ting, one of the most exceptional young people of the heavenly Luo Taoist sect. This Luo Ting had another identity. He was a fiancé of Miss Murong Su of the Floating Snow House. This relationship had been established by the previous generation when Luo Ting and Murong Su were still in their swaddling clothes. The heavenly Luo Taoist sect and the Floating Snow House shared the same strength and position in the Xianyuan Mound. This marriage could be said to be a well-matched match. Because of this marriage, this Luo Ting had always been close to the Floating Snow House. Since he was a teenager, he often met with Murong Su. Luo Ting was extremely satisfied with Murong Su's temperament and appearance. He even often looked forward to the arrival of this marriage. However, he did not know if it was fate playing tricks on people, or Murong Su was born with a rebellious nature. Since a young age, although Murong Su did not hate Luo Ting, she was not close to him either. She even deliberately kept a respectful distance from him and avoided him. Initially, Luo Ting thought it was the reserved and bashful nature of a young girl. However, as he grew older, and as he gained a deeper understanding of Murong Su, he realized that Murong Su was not a girl who could not show her face. Her personality was natural and unrestrained. She was not a girl who did not dare to show herself in front of others because of her reserved and bashful nature. Although Luo Ting resisted such thoughts inwardly, he must admit that indeed, Murong Su did not have much appreciation for him. This made Luo Ting feel incredibly frustrated and defeated. As the years passed, this frustration and defeat gradually turned into a form of anger and resentment. He felt that Murong Su was using some method to belittle him and make him feel extremely uncomfortable with his self-esteem. For your information, although Luo Ting did not come from the Heavenly Emperor Eight Gates across the entire Xianyuan Mound, his talent was definitely one of the best among the young generation. If it wasn't the case, how could he have trained to the profound Void Martial stage at such a young age? Even if the heavenly Luo Taoist sect had intended to nurture him, even if he had encountered all kinds of fortuitous opportunities, they could not deny Luo Ting's talent. His talent and reputation had brought Luo Ting a lot of relationships with the opposite sex. In the Xianyuan Mound, there were countless young girls who admired Luo Ting. Within the heavenly Luo Taoist sect, how many girls of the same age from the other two major surnames wanted to marry him? However, these relationships with the opposite sex did not improve Luo Ting's position in Murong Su's heart. In the end, Murong Su had treated him indifferently. Initially, Luo Ting was not a magnanimous young man. Murong Su's attitude had gradually twisted his heart. In his heart, the seed of hatred kept being planted and the flower of hatred kept blooming. Black Panther, you did a good job. In an instant, countless thoughts flashed across Luo Ting's mind. Young master, in my opinion, Black Panther had followed Luo Ting for many years and more or less understood Luo Ting's personality. When he saw Black Panther hesitating to speak, Luo Ting said lightly, "Black Panther, speak if you have something to say. Between us, there is no need to be evasive and hesitant." "Yes, young master. Black Panther has followed you for many years. It could be said that I have watched you grow up, become a talent, and acquire your current position. In the future, I will certainly follow you until I am powerless to contribute to you." Black Panther finally entered the main topic after beating around the bush for a long time. "It's not that I am taking advantage of my seniority. Indeed, Black Panther feels that with your talent, in the future, you will certainly become a feudal lord in the Xian Yuan Mound. Even if you were to enter the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, it would most likely happen. Young master, why don't you spend all your efforts on training? Regarding the matter of the Mu Rong family breaking the marriage contract, why don't you let the higher-ups of the sect handle it?" Black Panther's starting point was simple. He did not want Luo Ting to accumulate too much psychological pressure due to the matter with Murong Su. These psychological pressures had gradually turned into inner demons that controlled Luo Ting. Although there were no substantial effects at the moment, as time passed, the harm was foreseeable. Luo Ting stared at Black Panther with a cold gaze. "Black Panther, I admit that in the heavenly Luo Daoist sect, even my relatives would not be as reliable as you. However, I want to say that I am an adult. Whatever I do, I have my own limits and opinions." Inwardly, Black Panther gave a long sigh as he knew that in the end, Luo Ting did not listen to him. When he had spoken up to this point, he already knew that it would be useless to say more. As a subordinate, he could only speak up to this point. If he continued to speak, most likely he would be punished for his words. "Black Panther, arrange it. I will be leaving the sect for a while." Luo Ting stared at Black Panther with a sharp gaze and ordered again. Black Panther raised his head with astonishment. "Young master, don't worry about my training. Leaving the sect does not mean that I am going to abandon my training plan. I'm only curious. Could it be that Qin Wushuang knows how to shrink and hide?" Since he had entered the Xian Yuan Mound, with so many freelance martial artists, how could there not be any news? If that's the case, I will go and meet him myself. I will see if those remote and desolate human countries can nurture a monstrous genius. "Young master, don't speak anymore. I made up my mind. You arrange it." Luo Ting's tone left no room for doubt. To be continued. If you want to know the future, please log on to www.chijian.com. Support the author. Support the original reading. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.